Does it say live? It says we are live. Start with the theme song.
Don't you cry tonight? I don't need God, love, baby. Don't you cry tonight? I don't need God, love, baby. Don't you cry?
I think I've told it on here before, but on my mission there was a guy who performed Sinatra just like that, really, really well. Like he performed it, he could sing it really well, he could play it really well, had a great voice, didn't know the words, and so he just started going, "Run in the mile, a river dancing a mountain in the night," and got paid to do it too.
Well, he's living the dream.
Yeah, we're getting to a future where we might all be doing that too, because like you see these TikTok videos where it's getting really popular to mimic Chinese songs and dance around the Chinese songs. I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
we're all doing it. So I should find the. There's this thing where these people would say, you need to tell your wife she's right or sing this song perfectly in Chinese, and then it would show these men learning this whole song in Chinese and singing it all the way through. What's up, Risto? I don't know if I could find those. I wouldn't even know how to do that. Or sing in Chinese. You have light on. You sound like you got a room mic going.
Oh, hang on.
Okay, here it is.
But how did that fix the mic? I think he still got room mic.
Oh no, I'm sure I do. I noticed that I needed to turn the light on first.
I see.
Okay, check this out. Admit you're wrong, we're singing Chinese.
我们今生注定是沧桑，苦之来要笑着走过呀，朋友啊，让我们一起牢牢铭记呀，我们今生兄弟情一场。
Isn't that just so men?
So here's the question, though, like, because that's Chinese contemporary music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also 100% Western in all of its, like, construction and theory. And
yeah,
it's like, you know, and like now clearly we didn't colonize none of that shit. They have been very much their own thing all this time. So who told them to appropriate our culture like that?
Yeah, we have no culture.
Yeah, that's true too.
Oh,
we don't have any culture. What are your names? We got Jesus drank grapes. Jesus drank wine. What are you guys referencing? Is there something going on there?
No, I just because I'm trying this wine from Galilee. I've never had it before.
Did you guys just accidentally choose the same thing?
No, I'm sure he saw what I did.
Oh,
yeah, I didn't see that you had sent the link. I was sitting here waiting for it, and then I saw that you went live. I was like, "What the hell?" And then he did send the link, and then I saw what Flip's name was. It just reminded me of this. You guys didn't have The District, but it was this great training sort of documentary style. Like it was like a reality TV show style training video for missionaries, where like a camera crew followed several missionaries. And
I feel like I saw that.
I think I might have shown you some clips. I looked for this clip; it was amazing, but I can never find it. Of they taught this investigator the word of wisdom, and the missionary pullback classic. Well, it actually wasn't even alcoholic. The grape juice, the wine Jesus drank is just grape juice, and the guy's like, "Okay, hold on a second. No, that's impossible." they didn't have the technology to keep it from fermenting. They didn't, and he just rattles off all this shit. And the missionary's like, "Oh God," and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna not teach things I don't know about anymore."
Yeah, pretty critical.
Oh man, you don't have an ad read, do you?
Oh shoot, I don't.
Dang it. Well, then I guess we just got to get right into Mormon crap.
Jen Camp is a nutcase.
Holy shit! I listened to.
That's where you
good-
went first.
I listened to a good chunk of that first deposition that she. One of the funniest things she said in it so far was they're asking her about her increased duties after Kara left, and she's like, "Well, I was in charge of what was it? I was in charge of posting shorts after she left, which is a full-time job on top of the part-time job I was already doing for them." Like,
Oh, bro.
the lady's like, how many hours would you say you were working? And she goes, all of them, like all the hours. We were like always. And she's like, you got to estimate a number for me. And she said, 40. Whoa.
Like without the slightest hint of
That is no. Well, it's funny because she just
self-awareness?
got finished saying that it was a full-time job on top of her already part-time job, and I'm sure she exaggerated the number of hours by
undoubtedly.
at least 200%. But it was 4. It was one full-time job. Even her exaggeration.
No, like I mean, seriously, when I listen to her talk, it's weird because like it might sound like a stretch, but it reminds me of when I read Elliot Rodger, the incel killer, like his memoir,
Yeah.
because it's literally him going like, I was born into privilege and I've always gotten everything I wanted, and if I didn't get what I wanted, I kicked and screamed until I got what I wanted. Oh, the world has been nothing but horrible to me all this time. Like that's literally the narrative, and the kid like has no fucking self-awareness. Like jackass, you're just a fucking narcissist. And it's
So
the same
the-
thing with Jen. Like she doesn't seem to catch on to like, lady, everybody's listening to your story going like, you were giving everything, you didn't even fucking deserve it, and you're bitching about it.
So you can actually the most shocking thing about this deposition that she released so far is it gave me a little bit more sympathy to John DeLynn, because I always say you're a fucking idiot for hiring her. But you watch this deposition and she can just turn it off completely. She turns off the tears. It's at will. She can turn it on and off. And she even mentioned that in her thing. She said, I didn't cry at all during the deposition. Like it was impressive or something. And I thought she was lying, but no, she hasn't cried yet. She's being very personable and answering. Other than that, it's mostly her being pretty reasonable. So I could see her faking her way through an interview somewhat. It made me okay. Maybe maybe John DeLynn wasn't. Maybe it's reasonable that she pulled the wool over his eyes because.
Well, no, but even then, the whole part where it's like we're looking for what was it, a director of operations?
No, I know she doesn't.
Right? And she says like she even says like, well, I told them I have no experience, and they're like $25 an hour. And she's like 30, and they're like, okay.
Well, they gave her the position before she even fulfilled the because the promise was like I don't know. Apparently, she said she could put on an event for them. And John DeLynn said, oh, well, if you do well on this event, maybe we'll hire you full time or whatever. And apparently, at first she was like, yeah, it was so successful that they hired me. But then you find out they offered her the position before the event even happened. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe he did like just want to boink her. I don't know.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Oh, we found out the amount of money. She said that she's probably lost in it. She says over $300,000.
That's amazing.
Is what she claimed. And put a farm up for sale. Her husband's farm. Like that guy.
Oh my God.
Like chasing this thing, like sell your farm for chasing this thing. Like what sort of legal advice even if like they had some sort of case that they're correct, I don't know like what sort of money they thought they were going to get out of this. That like even just being like a little bit correct. That, oh, you said a little bit of sexist stuff. That doesn't justify a $300,000 lawyer bill.
Oh Jesus! It depresses me when because she posted a picture of their land and it looks like this nice, pretty plot, she talks about how her husband just saved up since he was like 18 years old because this was his dream, and she might be totally exaggerating that. She might have pushed him into, who knows.
Yeah, she
But-
likes so much.
You read that
But-
Moby Dick book. Isn't that relevant to this story?
Yes, I did.
Oh God.
Yeah.
She's
People
she's
kill
doing it-
themselves chasing the thing, just like the entire Democratic Party. Their great big Moby Dick is Donald Trump. They just go destroy themselves trying to chase
Totally.
after this thing. So, which is, I saw Doug Wilson kind of describe Trump that way. He said, "I never said Trump was like a good person. What he is he's the great exposer." And I think that's kind of what it was too. I always kind of joke that that one of the reasons that herpes has never been cured is because herpes has to be activated to be treated, and what they actually can't figure out is how to activate it or something to treat it.
really?
So you need to get it activated so you can like work on it and treat it and that sort of stuff. Trump is the herpes activator. Like he made the herpes show itself. That's all he is. You know?
Ew.
Yeah, he made our national herpes show itself. And now you can now you don't have to argue with people that it's possibly down there. It's there. You know, look at the great big flesh wound on our face. You know, but anyway, from herpes back to Jen. Oh my gosh, I could get sued. That thing
It's
is so ridiculous. I can't believe that I can't believe she thought it was a good idea. She went through like 5 different lawyers, and I'm guessing each one of them just kind of were happy to cash the retainer check.
I know.
And then,
They're like,
then
fine.
kick her out and say, "I can't help you out. Sorry." And she's probably going to sue each one of them for not helping her, I'm guessing.
Very likely.
Well, they don't care about women enough because it's not about the money. It's about ensuring that it never happens to any other woman ever again. You have to go through what I go through. She seriously has multiple times said it's a good thing it happened to somebody as strong as me and resilient as me because I can take it. But what if it happened to a woman? That couldn't handle it?
I know everything she says. Oh, I just did it for them. Like, oh, and I did it to try to help the Open Stories Foundation, and I did it. It's all because I sacrificed too much. It sounds just like my mom.
I think of that all the time. Imagine having her as a mom. That would just be so hellish.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I know. I kind of know how it is.
Those kids were probably like, "Oh, thank the Lord, she got a job." Like a little bit of peace and quiet once in a while.
Oh man.
It's kind of one of those things where the kids probably have to do that whole let her gaslight you thing. Like, oh, and I'm a single mother when my husband's out of town, and her daughters are like, yeah, you are. Those are some victim points, Mom. Keep on doing it. Yeah, how can you do it? You're so strong, Mom.
Yeah.
There's a synod this week. The synod, more synod on synodality. I didn't know there was a synod. What are they talking about? Are they going to let more gays in the Catholic Church?
Ooh. That would be a fun twist.
What's the synod on? Like,
I know no idea.
Synod on synodality. It's still synod on synodality. I guess it's still just going. Okay.
We're just synoding it up for the sake of a synod.
Yeah, it's just
been a while since we had one.
Endlessly self-reviewing the self-review. The self-review on self-review. I wonder what.
I just imagine the Pope's like
the really non-Catholic one. Which one are you talking about? Vanderklay Synod. I didn't catch
Vanderklay
videos. Oh, maybe they're just even in that CRC. Oh, the church. Oh, a synod of the those Christ Reformed Church, the Calvinists. Wow, are they going to let the gays be preachers? CRC Synod. I didn't know they did synods too.
Wait a minute, they're gonna let the gays be pastors? All progressives ever do is complain about gay priests and pastors.
Well, I mean, here it is.
Kids.
What's going on? Synod for the Christian Reformed Church. Do they say what the subjects are? mean, usually all these synods are to review that stuff lately. So, is that what they're going to review?
Synod of the Christian Reformed Church. Now I'm curious about this. Documents.
What's it about?
Oh, nothing's available yet under documents.
Well, we don't know until it comes out.
Schedule.
So I guess
Virtual
we'll find
convening
out later.
session. Virtual advisory committee meeting. Orientation for first-time delegates. None of this says anything. Ooh, supper. Orientation during supper for advisory committee chairs, reporters, and their alternates. Where's the good stuff?
I guess we
Seems
don't
like
get to
they're hiding
find out
something.
quite yet. I know I've heard Paul talk about that stuff's been coming up over in that Christian Reformed Church. There was a synod on ex-Mormonism from Shawn McCraney over on Mormonism Live. How many of y'all watched that?
That
No.
was pretty funny.
You didn't
He's
watch
back.
it?
No, I heard you guys. I listened to you guys talk about it. My dad used to like watching that guy for some reason. It's weird.
I used to
guess
catch him just randomly on TV. Like it used to be on TV back in the day.
Yeah, no, I don't know how, but he really got on TV.
Yeah.
I guess what channel was he on?
I mean, he's a personality. Like
Oh, for sure.
he's the perfect TV personality.
But yeah, like he was like #1 cable access guy.
And he's
he's on all over, and I guess I didn't know if he was like semi-national. I thought he was like in Texas or something like that when I was young, and I don't know. I didn't know what exactly he was doing or what was happening on TV. I didn't know where the TV came from when I was young. But he's coming out in full defense of the Mormons. Those are Mormons.
This whole thing was funny because he just the person that he's warning that you'll become is just Bill Reel. That's all it is. And it's hilarious because
I wonder if he knew. Yeah, I wonder if he'd followed Bill enough.
I don't know if Sean did, because if he did, he might have said something about it. But because he's pretty abrasive, it seems like.
Or do you think Bill just was playing like sneakily dumb to it? That
I don't think he was
kept
playing dumb.
talking about losing your wife and becoming a swinger.
Well, I know he did talk about that a couple of times, but it was just hilarious because Bill at one point mentions like, well, yeah, you deconstructed all of this other stuff and you deconstructed Mormonism, and why not just finish the deconstruction and be like me? Bill, he's warning against being like you. He's saying if you deconstruct all the way, you're going to try polyamory and dissolve a 20+ year marriage because of it.
Yeah, so this is where I made just a dumb little meme of the show, but I like the phrase that he used here. Whoa, where'd it go? I'm on the right page. Is this it? Is that the right one? You hear it?
Yeah.
Everybody, but I think it helps a lot of people who have abandoned the faith, who have abandoned Mormonism and been left, like I said on the show, like declawed cats out in the wilderness.
Yeah. So I want to follow that up by saying that how are you going to change your approach then? So if Mormonism is still blatantly false,
They're
really
all false.
Sure, but what how are you going to approach that then? Are you just going to encourage the Latter-day Saints to stay in the church, or are you still going to point out problems inside Mormonism?
No, I'm not going to focus on the problems inside Mormonism. There's other shows and podcasts where guys do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, you got that one.
Yeah.
Actually, what all we're doing is saying faith without religion. And if you need to be in a religion, stay at it. So, I mean, continue to pray to Heavenly Father. Continue to believe in Jesus. If it's going to mean breaking up your family and it's going to mean divorcing and wife swapping and all the stories I've heard.
That might have been a jab. I don't know.
That's funny.
I don't know. Do you sense like anything in Bill's face? Or is he...
Stay in the damn church.
No,
that's all
like-
I said.
Well, you know,
I think as long as you just have to be interested in the topic and you will hear the stories. You know?
yeah.
Like if you talk to people who talk to people, then you'll hear the stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons we started talking about this, and these guys brought up that he was the moderator in the debate between RFM and the Midnight Mormons, and I was there when the Midnight Mormons were wearing the Marty. That's when I met Marty, actually.
Did you hear RFM's really, really hilarious joke? Dude, you'll never, dude, you're gonna laugh your ass off. Okay, he called them the Midnight Morons.
Whoa!
Oh my god! Oh!
Here they are mentioning it.
Except for the fact that I think that you moderated a debate between me and the Midnight Morons back in November of 2021.
That's true. I did have that luxury, and that was a great time.
It was a wonderful time.
Bulletproof vest and all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So I was there, and you want to know something that I'm pretty sure I remember? I remember I was standing towards the front of the stage because I was with the Midnight Mormons, and it was like a week or two.
Ideologically is what you mean by I was with them,
ideologically.
Right?
No, I showed up with them because Cardin had actually showed me that this wackadoo person had left like death threat messages for him, and I listened to them. They were real. And yeah, they were like they were half goofing and they half weren't. And but I was there because he said, "Hey, come down because we're just like a little bit spooked. Everybody's gonna be like, they wanted a little bit of a bodyguard or something like that." And everybody was perfectly fine. That's where I met Marty, was waiting around in the front because I was supposedly helping them guard the front, and Marty was in the front of the line. I got to talk with Marty and her husband for like an hour, and that's where I met her. But we talked kind of right after the show about the now famous incident where it's been brought to RFM's attention a whole bunch of times of asking him if he's his brother's keeper after, when they pointed out to him that they just go like stripping church away from people and then just leaving them to their own wiles or whatever like that. And now it seems like all this time later, Shawn's coming out saying, "I'm taking a full stand that you guys do just kind of leave them wandering in the sea and you strip it away from them and you leave them out to sea with nothing."
Well, he actually does. Like RFM actually does explicitly say, "I'm not my brother's keeper" in this.
Yeah,
just
he said it in the debate, I think, as well.
Oh, did he?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I like this little clip of where he got into they showed the clip of something from his own show. I'll show it to you.
Before we get off the subject, we do have the clip now, and because it has to do with what we've been talking about. We've got a little bit off the subject, but here's the clip. It's a keeper, and we'll let you respond to this after it's played.
Walk in your faith.
So
let's love each other.
So I do love you.
He looks so different. I remember it had to have been in the 90s, right?
I wouldn't have known. I would not have even put it together that it was the same guy.
I wouldn't have guessed either. He looked like some surfer dude.
Yeah, he looks kind of like a hippie in his heyday.
Yeah.
Still sound to me like you're stuck on yourself as being the most righteous one that has all the answers. I'm sorry, Shawn.
I don't think you listen to me, brother.
For you.
See, right now,
let me just point carefully.
Well, wait, let me point out to you and prove to the audience how wrong you are. Fuck you. Okay? Is that someone who's stuck on themselves and trying to bring in people to follow me? You idiot. I am a passionate, virile, carnal man. I am not a religious leader, but I know scriptural truth, Yeshua, and you are just here to present Mormonism as the great way. I am trying to tell you can. No, I'm trying to tell you you can do it.
Is that?
It's not going to work on me. I don't care about Christian. I care about being authentic before my God. Yeah, you are.
I'm trying to let the Spirit work on you. Okay.
Walk in your faith.
So
let's love each other.
So I do love you. You still sound to me like you're stuck on yourself as being the most righteous one that has all the answers. I'm sorry, Shawn.
I don't think you listen to me, brother.
For you.
See, right now,
amazing,
man, fun stuff. I don't know, but I mean, I guess he's coming out hard telling most Mormons. I think for you Mormons, it's better for you to stay in than becoming what you're becoming, most of you. And I don't think he was necessarily just saying becoming some atheist or something like that. I think he was talking about what we're talking about, that you become.
Well, he does say a couple times, like, it's not atheism that I have a problem with.
It's that you guys' lives fall the hell apart.
Yeah, it's that.
And you were asking Jared in the thread is like, what kind of indictment is on Mormonism that we are like what does Mormonism do to us that Mormons do seem to be defanged house kittens when released back into the wild? Like, is that something? Is that an indictment of Mormonism?
I know that's so. When Morgan had her channel, and like when she would ask me things, what I would say is that if you leave the church before your mission, you're probably going to be fine. If you leave the church after your mission, it's a little more tricky. If you leave the church after you have a family and several kids and you're in your mid-40s, you're fucked. Like, the younger you leave, the better off you probably are. The older you leave, it's going to fuck you up. I mean, I've had friends, like we had a friend in her mid-40s who left, and she had a teenage daughter, and she's like, I don't know what to do. My daughter keeps wearing like a tube top to school, and I can't tell her no, because that would be slut shaming. It's like, you can absolutely tell her no. First off, it's against the school rules, so I don't know why that's even an argument, really. But you can tell her no. You can tell her don't dress like that, and you're still a mom, and
you can even give her a good reason why.
Yeah, you don't have to be a dick about it. You don't have to be like, you're a slut or whatever. But it was really.
But that's like she says. But teacher told me that you're trying to control my body.
Yeah.
You're a forced birth fascist. I learned that in the 3rd grade today at school.
So is it just like a reaction on the church being like too overly strict? Ritzel said it's not just Mormonism, but like
I think it's more okay. Maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but I think it's more Mormonism than it is other religions.
Mormonism.
Because Mormonism. Because like one of the big hallmarks of one of the biggest disservices Mormonism does to its young adults is treating them like they're untrustworthy children. And you can see that especially at BYU, Idaho. Yeah. Every single rule is geared toward a person who is, what am I looking for? A sex addict trying not to have sex. Like, that's all it is. I mean, I remember when Morgan and I were dating, she was in the dorms, and it's the worst there. And she had this manager of the dorms who would stop by and like, we're watching a movie with a big group of people. So we got the lights off, and she comes in, the lights have to be on. I'm like, Jesus Christ, lady, what do you think we're going to do? Or one time me and Morgan are watching a movie, and she's like laying her head on my leg, and I'm sitting up. She comes in, we have a 4 on the floor rule, and both of you have to have your feet on the floor.
Like, 4 on the floor.
I know it sounds like doggy style, but
it sounds like something Mr. Garrison would say, or Mr. Mackey. I mean,
yeah, 4 on the floor.
Good.
Premarital sex is bad. Good.
Just today, Delin had on 4 Release Society ladies. I don't have a terrible ton to comment on it. It was mostly just dull.
Oh, but, you don't say.
Yeah, I listened to the whole fucking thing. It was.
So did I.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I think it gassed my brain out for real. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was just. I thought it was a little bit pleasant in the sense that like it didn't terribly seem like feminist complaining. It kind of just seemed like old school overworked mom complaining. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, they use some feminist lingo, but that's just what you do now. Like they kept saying patriarchy, but it was from the perspective of somebody who, read the first paragraph of the wiki on patriarchy. That's
they've been too busy to catch up on all the lingo from TikTok. But one of the things that they said that sounded profoundly irritating is they were talking about like they'd planned like some camp for the girls, and they were just going to have kind of regular world music at the camp, and they got told by the bishopric they could only have church music at the camp or something like that. And I hear stuff like that, and
the problem, what the problem with that is that they asked. That's seriously, because the same thing happened to me on my mission. I was so bummed to go 2 years without a guitar. Then I got to Brazil finally, and I was in the apartment with the APs, and one of them had a guitar, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I can get a guitar." well, I better clear with the president first. So I emailed him on a P day, and I was like, hey, I see that a lot of people have guitars. When I was
Yeah,
waiting
you
on
made
my
a
visa in
mistake. I never
Nebraska, it was
asked.
so I
Yeah.
asked, and he said, well, I think it's best for you to focus on this. Like, your fucking AP has a guitar, and I lasted a couple months. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy a guitar. And so I did.
That's all at church. Don't you know that that old joke about stealing
Asking
a bike and
forgiveness
repenting
or-
later? Yeah, you steal a
Yeah.
bike and like and ask forgiveness. That's how it works. But when I heard that story, I was just thinking, like, remembering how irritating it was dealing with. I don't know if you call it bureaucratic. I mean, I did want to get a little bit more into the managerialism and the bureaucracy of the church, which is as much a problem for the man as it is for the Relief Society women. But I wanted to look at it through the eyes of the Karens, the Anthropology of the Karens. Did you guys watch that video I sent?
Yeah, I
you?
did. It was good.
No, I didn't watch that one. I need to
Watch a little bit of it. But I mean, everything kind of just does point to over the top managerialism and bureaucracy and that sort of stuff. But when I heard that, I was immediately flashback to just all the times I just kind of wanted to wring the neck of a Mormon person for being stupid about something. But I don't know. So McCraney thinks people are better inside the church than outside on average. I don't know on average, because like I know plenty of people who did pretty well just kind of moving on to other stuff. But then I also, like I've said many times before, kind of see them move on to the schmacktivism, and the schmacktivism world seems to be, well, one level of it is like, it seems like a movement into statism is one of the first things that happens. And then bureaucracy and managerialism, they move into statism because they do still need some sort of structure or somebody to tell them that they business, or they want to become the business tellers. I've always joked many times that the same Relief Society ladies that were shaking their fingers at me about listening to Megadeth when I was 13 are the exact same ones shaking their fingers at me about Black Lives Matter in 2020 or something like that.
Cara Burrell is the perfect example of that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't know, so the activism or total fall apart degeneracy or statism, those three things I would say are worse than Mormonism. I would say my friends who just became campers and hung out, although several of them ended up boning around and losing their marriages too. So maybe that's the same thing, but I don't know that they did it under a theory. Like, I've got a theory that I'm going to bone around but
you ever see the movie Surrogates?
uh-uh.
It's a Bruce Willis movie, and basically the premise is that everybody basically lives in pods, and they plug into the pod, and it basically animates their consciousness into a cyborg version of themselves. So nobody really dies because they're always safe in their homes or whatever. And I feel like that's maybe that's what Mormonism is, because like you see Bruce Willis, he's like a cyborg, he's strong, he's running around, it works just fine. It's just the second that he leaves the pod, he's just emaciated and like all of his muscles are atrophied. He's just disgustingly sickly. So maybe that's what Mormonism is. Maybe it's some type of a crutch. Like, it's fine if you just use it forever, but once you stop, you've used it for too long. So
It's
just
like
go
that
back
episode.
into the pod.
It's like that episode from the first season of Next Generation, where there's the two planets, and the one planet sells the other planet the drugs. They're basically just addicted to a drug, but they tell them it's a disease, and the drug is just medicine. And it's all super classic Star Trek in its lameness, and yet it's kind of a great episode, especially for season 1.
What's the reveal on the drug?
It's because like the whole thing is like, oh, they're like, what is it? They have to go mediate this thing, and I don't know. Red Letter Media reviewed it, but like they're like, oh, this society like is sick, and we provide, like, they don't have the technology, but we have the technology to provide them this drug that makes them feel better. And as long as they have it, they're okay. And they're our only source of energy, or whatever the fuck it is. And then, like, you know, because it's Star Trek, they kind of like the doctor's like, hang on a second. The disease is you feel like shit until you get the drug. And then after a while, you feel like shit again until you get the drug again. And like, that's how she figures out it's all like this thing. And then it becomes like this prime directive thing, because they're not like not even prime directive. It's like a Star Trek bureaucracy thing, because they're like, hey, you can't interfere in our shit. And I can't remember. Picard's like, yeah, well, then we're just going to like, because they already revealed to the people like, hey, this is just a drug. And they solved it and they screwed the planet. I don't know. It's dumb Star Trek shit.
Well, you want to know what's funny about this schmacktivism thing? I got a notification, a memory from 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I was still pretty fresh off my mission, because I'd come back in 2012. And a lot of shit happened in America while I was on my mission. Like, I got home right as the Zimmerman trial was wrapping up. And I missed out on a lot of shit. And one of the things, so I was like an old man when I came back. Like, what is all this shit going on here? Like, what in the hell is a hashtag? Like, Vine had already peaked and was on its way down by the time I got back. So I still don't really even know what Vine is. And so it was hilarious watching, like, if I go back to my 2014 posts, like watching me just get mad at all this new shit. And one of the things was hashtag activism. Apparently on May 23rd of 2014, I was really annoyed with hashtag activism.
You saw it. You're reminiscent of.
Well, it just was stupid. Like it like, what the fuck are you doing?
I remember sometime around there, like the term started floating around of slacktivism, which I would rather go back to slacktivism than activism, because I just go back to like posting some hashtag or something. Leave everybody alone.
Just do a profile picture where you support the current thing.
Don't make a career choice of it, Black Menaces. This was an interesting episode where Connor Boyack kind of went in after the church's lobbyists, also
because they
influenced from the start. I don't know.
The legislative process, and they were always nicknamed the home teachers back when we, called it home teaching.
Oh, savage!
Because
really?
they'd come up, two of them. They would go meet privately with the leadership of the church, who's all Mormon. And
please tell me they wore black suits and had like a steel briefcase that had like a Book of Mormon inside, but like, other documents,
Be the best, you gotta beat the best.
Yeah, like they said that
there's no doctrinal basis for political neutrality,
nor historical basis. They know, this is the thing that bugs me. The church knows the influence that it wields. I don't know what it means to be political, because what is politics? It's
morality.
Just the process. It's the process by which we interact with one another in the public sphere.
I mean, one of the things that's coming up is obviously religious political activism is going to be rearing its ugly head, but you can kind of thank the religiously left for bringing out upon us. But maybe that's just the cycle of evermore. But one of the weird things about this is that Connor both thinks that the church should just be upfront about what their political activism is, but every instance he brings up in this, he brings up an instance where he was against the church's politics. So like alcohol
ends heavily on the issue. On some topics, sure, but on a lot of
feminists
issues,
run roughshod on the church. They get whatever they want. I'll
give you an example. Alcohol policy, right, in Utah. And so you take an issue like that, and nothing will happen in Utah. Like, we want to privatize the government-run liquor stores. I don't think that taxpayers should be compelled to be in the liquor business, especially people who don't drink and whatever. So we say, hey, let's privatize these.
This guy?
And you cannot change.
Connor?
Like, he's saying, like, he's a Mormon and he's saying this stuff.
Oh yeah. He's
We've
really
been talking about him quite a bit.
Which is funny because like people talk to me all the time because like I bring up this thing about this thing to privatize liquor sales in Utah, and everybody says it'll never ever happen. And I always say, like, there's an argument to be made to conservative Mormons to do this, and there's a conservative Mormon making the argument for me, and it's just so refreshing.
No,
to know that
Connor's
that's happening.
So he writes the Tuttle Twins. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's like
It's nationally famous.
it's kids books, and it's like
Oh.
they actually got my brother-in-law does the voice acting for one of the characters in the TV show, and I don't know, they're pretty cool. We got a whole little book of it, and it's obviously politically, it's very libertarian. It's shit like what he's saying right now. Like one of the first episodes of their show is there's like this local, like the main characters want to run a lemonade stand, and the local HOA girl comes around and tells them they need a permit or whatever, and their grandma teaches them how to say fuck you. I mean, not really say fuck, but like.
Yeah, he's pretty hard libertarian, but
he's also starting to dabble in the Joseph didn't do polygamy thing, which
we were talking about that recently. He was one of the ones that seemed to be like picking up on what Michelle Stone's been laying down. So is Russell M. Nelson. I've got proof. I won't. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe I'll pull that up a bit. But he's pretty good on like stuff like that. I mean, not every little thing in the world I think is exactly right, but he says that's about alcohol.
Any
does he affirm gender
without getting the church's blessing? So it depends on the issue. Sometimes
what's funny about it is he talks about a situation where the church was worried about looking like they have too much influence, so then they went in and said that they need to influence the law to be different so that it doesn't look like they have as much influence.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, here it is.
Because we don't want people thinking that the church is this perception out there that the church controls politics. And so if your bill passes, if you pass this crazy fringe, controversial gun bill, then people are going to assume that the church is behind it or supportive of it. And we can't really have that. And so are you willing to like just kill your bill and not advance it further? Because we don't want people thinking that the church is supporting something like this. The legislator, to his credit, he pauses and he's like, so let me get something straight. You're here in my office out of a concern for this perception that the church is influencing politics. And therefore you're here in my office to influence politics to try to get me to not run this bill. It was this very weird like dynamic that they didn't realize that they were in the middle of engaging in something that they had this perception that they were fighting against, but they were really creating the experience.
Do you think they didn't realize though? I mean, I bet they realized.
Well, I'm sure they realized.
Yeah. That's funny though that they have lobbyists called the home teachers, and there are two guys, and he knows who the two guys are, and they go around lobbying stuff all over Utah. So I mean, I guess they're not complete anti-statists, but some Mormons are, But I mean, of course, then again, the church gets totally involved in stuff. But I don't know. That one was interesting. Even Cardin said some stuff kind of calling him out a little bit. I think he got Cardin to get into the mode a little bit. I can't remember what exactly it was.
Cardin gets a little heated on the whole bureaucracy thing every now and then.
Yeah, he definitely mentioned it. And then they definitely talk about the concept of it becoming too managerial and bureaucratic and risk aversion.
I'm pretty excited for because I feel like Kwaku starts really pushing the envelope for shit that your normal Mormon can really put up with. And I feel like Cardin gives him so much more leeway than he would give other people, because I think Cardin really wants to have the black guy on his show, totally. He really wants to go into the identity politics. I want to know. I'm really excited to see when Kwaku says shit that's too crazy for even that leeway that Cardin's willing to give it.
Yeah.
I don't know that they've done it in the past few years, but there has been this effort for people to basically say, yeah, get some stones, stand up, let's preach for what's right. What are we seeing in primary? Do what is right, let the consequence follow. And it seems like a lot of, the attorneys that Curtin McConkie and the risk adjusters and the insurance company and everyone kind of poo-poos any desire to stand up. And when I read this, Luke, the point that you're talking about, This says the church does not endorse, promote, or oppose political parties in their platforms. Well, they used to, right? Like, so.
But it's also kind of weird because he's both says that in almost each of the examples he brought up, he's against them. But then he also is saying that they should just openly start getting more engaged in politics. But I don't know, maybe if that happens, you'd suddenly agree with them all over the place. But I mean, I think that kind of brings up the issue of like the church's managerial problem, because are you dealing with an entity that is like some, I don't know, some single person's moral? I'm not single person. Is it a moral entity or is it a managerial entity? And I think things change into managerial entities. And once they become that, there's no going back. Simpsons is now a managerial entity. Disney is now a managerial entity. Our government. Yeah.
I just saw before I came on, what's his name? Count Dankula covered it. But like in Belgium, where they have legalized prostitution, like,
and now they're getting required.
There's this new thing where it's like prostitutes are allowed like to a decline, like they're allowed a veto. But there's like this thing where it's like if you have more than 10 vetoes in a 12-month period, they're going to investigate why you're vetoing people.
Oh my God.
Because men are claiming discrimination, right?
Jesus Christ.
And so,
my goodness.
At what point did we decide that discrimination is just deontologically wrong in every fucking situation?
And also, just like,
can I not discriminate against weird douchebags that wear nothing but trench coats?
That's the boomer truth regime. The very first and most important thing is equality. They said it. You heard it on the Lynn podcast with the women. They said, "What's your most important value now?" They all said it's some sort of equality thing.
And if I get like a lineup of people, 5 of them are like 15-year-old girls who seem nice and well put together, and 5 of them are like 48-year-old dudes wearing trench coats with nothing underneath, and I choose one of the 15-year-old girls to watch my kids every single time, then eventually one of those dudes hey, you're discriminating. Yes, of course I'm discriminating. What are you fucking talking about?
But also, like, talk about controlling women's bodies. Like,
yeah,
we noticed you haven't fucked very many black dudes this week.
Well, just imagine all the implications, because like one of the huge things Mary Harrington's always talking about is what about when the commodification of women's bodies for birthing, a birthing apparatus becomes something that gets managed by the state, or even by I don't know what,
I know. I'm sitting here like, hey, maybe don't mash up babies' heads in the womb. And I'm trying to control women's bodies. Meanwhile, progressive butt fuck wherever is over there like, you have to fuck whoever comes in. You just have to. That's just a rule now. Yeah. You can, especially if they look Arabic. You can't turn down an Arabic dude. That's discriminatory. Yes, it's discriminatory. Of course it is.
Yeah. It's an amazing world.
All right, let's listen a little bit about the anthropology of the Karen. We'll speed it up a little, just a bit.
Middle-aged lady who's entitled. The kind of person to do so with Karens. For those who don't know, Karen is a term for an annoying middle-aged lady who's entitled. The kind of person who goes to a restaurant and dislikes the service, demanding to speak to the manager. Alternately, the kind of person who calls the police on her neighbor's children playing outside. The thing, though, is that oftentimes silly things show and demonstrate important or meaningful threads. I argue that this is the case with the Karens. I actually think the Karens are a symbolic of a social trend that is destroying Western civilization. That's a pretty reckless claim, but watch the video to see me back it up.
So what about this?
Certain aspects of society seem silly even when we encounter them on a daily basis, and others totally normal even when they're insane. Debt is insane, and getting rid of debt can be incredibly difficult. But with PDS debt, you can find the best debt, and I want that to happen. One of the most important themes of my channel is looking to see the patterns in history in order to try to figure out underlying principles under which it operates. Almost all of the important authors of that field wrote around the time of the World Wars a century ago. This includes Amaury de Riencourt, Spengler, Carol Quigley, Will Durant, Arnold Toynbee, or William McNeill. The idea of trying to figure out the underlying principles of history was gaining traction as a field around the time of the World Wars. Then in the 1960s, with the social changes associated with that decade, the idea of using history to understand the world became taboo. All the authors in this field, barring Fabry and I, who are very recent, are non-Western authors like Azar Gott, Yuval Noah Harari, or Peter Turchin, since in the West we had to throw away the shackles of the past to reach a new utopia. One of the most important points is that from all of those authors a century ago, and keep in mind the sheer neurological power of putting all these thinkers together is something ludicrously advanced, is they all agreed that the most dangerous thing in the world was the rise of bureaucracy. Keep in mind, these were people who lived through the world wars. They all
You can add in James Burnham to that, who was a huge influence on Orwell. I mentioned him a bunch of times.
agreed that even more so than those giant wars, the Soviets or the Nazis, that the rise of the bureaucracy was the factor that put Western and global civilization in the most danger. They agreed about this since they had all studied the factors that result in civilizational entropy. Every civilization eventually stagnates or declines. Thus, it makes sense for a historian to try to look for the factors which could possibly...
It's funny because in grad school, I read this story about like late stage of whatever imperial Spain. And it's this story called Vuelve Usted Mañana. And the whole thing is about the name of the story is Come Back Tomorrow. And the whole entire story is about everybody who does any sort of service is always just putting it off till tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Oh, could you come back tomorrow?
Precipitate that, since it's effectively a natural law that your society will decline at some point. They all agreed that the bureaucracy, since it naturally sucks up resources and has no protective element against it, would just continue to bloat, eventually destroying the entire society and Western civilization. These authors all agreed that the destruction of the bureaucracy in the post-World War II period was the most important thing that the society had to do now. For a frame of reference, these authors got a lot right. Amaury de Riencourt predicted the direction modern feminism took, as well as the trans movement. Carol Quigley predicted the collapse of the Soviet Union, the decline of hippie values with the baby boomer generation, and ironically predicted the rise of a new religion in the 21st century. He, alongside many other authors, predicted imminent population collapse and decadence. And on top of that, Spengler predicted in the 21st century it would be an era of nihilism with Caesarism developing. Then, on top of that, you would see population collapses as people would move to the countryside to escape the mechanical and sterile nature of that society. And so these authors weren't idiots. This is since the era around which these authors were writing had the managerial revolution, or a profound sociological change in which the world's ruling class shifted from aristocrats or business moguls to college-educated bureaucrats. This is since the growths in population, urbanization, or generally scale alongside the governments needed to manage the world wars meant that you needed to have large bureaucracies in order to manage just the sheer size of modern society. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is there are constantly a million different trajectories that societies can take at any given moment. Alternately, the human mind experiences a million different emotions on a monthly basis. The emotions that a society chooses to take seriously relate to its social structure and self-interest. For example, as a man, there are points where I've definitely wanted to murder someone, where I feel a flash of rage at someone pissing me off. Our society doesn't honor this at all. In that, it's kind of taboo to even say that, even though I think it's an emotion most men experience. When people say men should express their emotions, they don't mean that way. That being said, there are eras of history where if someone insulted me and felt enraged, then I would legally be allowed to kill them on the spot. Thus, that expression of emotion is valid and socially sanctioned. An argument I will make in this video is that people with the emotional state of Karens have always existed, but that in our era, we choose to enable them due to the self-interest of the ruling class. In the same way that in Dark Age Europe or feudal Japan, they enabled angry young men to fight duels, since those were the kinds of people who were in charge of society. When you look at the demands Karens make, it's almost always to a bureaucracy. I'd like to speak to the manager. That signifies implicitly a managerial structure, and that the guy who runs the restaurant isn't a mom and pop shop who's a sole proprietor, but works for some giant company in which he's a transitory guy. This is a very important distinction since it radically changes the incentives towards Karens in ways we'll see.
I thought that was one of the more interesting aspects of the whole video is that Karenism is a sign of managerialism, if you think about it.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I remember that when I was working at when I got this job, there's this dude. His name is Tom, and he's like the biggest cheapskate. He's also just like a sleazy dude, and it's hilarious because they talked about how, oh, one of the sleazy things he does, he hasn't paid for a movie in like a decade. How's he do that? And they're like, oh, anytime he goes to the theater, he just tells them there was something wrong with the screen, and they comp his ticket. And I was like, oh my God, that Asian dude. Because I worked at the theater in high school, and I remember him.
You knew the actual guy?
Yeah, I knew I worked with him in my current job, but I also dealt with his stupid bullshit in my high school job. He would come in with his kids, and he'd watch a movie, and then he'd watch the entire movie, and he'd come out, and he'd say, hey, the screen was a little blurry, or hey, it didn't start on time, or whatever, because he figured out like all of my managers would just be, okay, we'll just give you the ticket for free or whatever. And I would tell him every time, like, stop doing that. It bothers me when you do that. And they're like, well, why do you care? It's not costing you anything. Because you shouldn't get that. You're rewarding dog shit behavior. Like,
No, and I did roadside assistance 20 years ago, and it was like right in the middle of the 2008 financial collapse. And it was funny because a whole bunch of people figured out that using their built into their insurance, they had roadside assistance. And with the roadside assistance, all you had to do was call a phone number, and some guy might have to get out of bed, even if it was in the middle of the night, and just go put $5 worth of free gas in your tank. And so there was a guy that he had a nice, I'll never forget, it was a bright orange Dodge Charger. He worked at the VA hospital. He parked in the same place every day, and gosh darn it, he ran out of gas every day, just about. And that same spot, and he wasn't the only one. There was a bunch of guys that did this. They just figured that out. And then there's another place I worked where we had we called her Scammy Granny, because she would always pay with a card, and then it would always ask for her PIN or something, and she'd be like, I don't understand PIN, and the people well, you have to know your PIN. It's like, what? How do I do the PIN? And eventually, until somebody behind the line is like, how much is it? I'll just pay for it just to get the thing moving, and and she would do that over and over and over again. It was amazing, and yeah, she would call her the Scammy Granny.
Scammy Granny.
That's funny.
This is the story. 1832, Spain. Huevos de mañana. Come back tomorrow. Mariano Jose de Lara. He committed suicide at 27 years age. It kind of reminds me of Prufrock. What's that dude's name who wrote that? Do you know that story of?
I don't know.
Alfred J. Prufrock. No, I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I'll come up with that in a second. Anyway, it's this short story. This is the whole short story right here. But the whole thing is just talking about the endless bureaucracy that late imperial Spain turned into. But it's a joke. Then he even ends it off just kind of ripping on himself. He says, let me conclude for today that confessing that for more than 3 months, I have had the title of this feature story, Come Back Tomorrow, at the head of a piece of a notepaper. And that during this time, I've wanted to write something on it every evening and many afternoons, but every night I would put out my light, promising myself that the most childish faith in my own willpower. I'll write it tomorrow. Then this mañana finally came, and it isn't too bad, but alas for the mañana that will never come. But yeah, it's a pretty good little short story, kind of ripping on how bad things got in Spain entirely about people not doing anything or getting lazy like that. But the managerial stuff of the church and the Karens, I don't know. I don't even know what to put my finger on with it, but it just seems to me that's the bigger problem that the church, you got all the wokeness and you got all the activists coming at them and stuff. But I would think that their biggest actual worry is their own risk aversion and their own managerialism, because stuff turns into Simpsons. I mean, we saw what I dare to play the dang video that you showed me. I'll get taken down for playing Simpsons, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, probably.
There was that video about tips.
That was just European propaganda.
Yeah.
Oh,
song about tips.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't believe.
Yeah, they were
that
just
was so
all
cringe.
they were doing. They poked zero fun at Europe. None. They just acted
no.
like it was a complete paradise. They're like,
was
you guys
pure
don't tip
propaganda.
here? That's so awesome.
It's paradise
it's
because
pretty
we
hilarious.
pay servers a
It could
living
be-
wage and there's no tips.
Yeah, no, they say living wage and that we all have free health care, all this
I'll
shit.
link it in the thing.
And
I
they
won't
never
play
poke
so I
fun at
won't
it.
get
It could have been that's a hilarious concept for an episode, that Homer's such like a dumbass that he would find out that they don't tip in Europe, so he would just uproot his entire life and move to Europe for it. And then the last part of the episode would be him realizing the ways that it sucks there or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like no, that you just end up paying in other areas. That's all. Like,
But no, he doesn't learn that. It's just, oh yeah, Europe's a paradise.
yeah, no, like, but that's thing as well, because that's communists really think that if you just pay waiters more, then waiters just have more money, and that's just you just have to want it, and then it's true.
Here it comes in the. I'll link it in. It's just a really bad song about tips, but the whole entire thing is obviously just propaganda for this thing that's actually become like an issue around my work lately, because they've outlawed any sort of supervisor being part of a tip pool or something like that. But it seems like everything's moving towards paying people a wage and moving away from tips or service charges or something like that. But one of the things that they say in that video of this will improve equity between front of house and back of house. And I listen to that and I go, yeah, you dipshits, because the back of house people will make the same that they ever made.
I know.
And no servers will ever get like crazy ahead by being a go-getter. Like that's the equity that you're talking about. You cut the grass. You didn't grow the grass. That's what you did. And the Simpsons just singing like a straight propaganda song of that. Well, we saw that Harry Shearer actually came out critiquing the Simpsons, and yeah, let's see what he said here. I got too many tabs open. It says folks say that the show has become woke in recent years. Harry Shearer, if you don't know, is the voice of many characters.
Like
He
half
was
of the
the voice
cast.
of Hibbert.
Yeah, he was Dr. Hibbert. Yeah, and Jared picked this thing out too, but I thought it was a funny thing. He says, well, I'll read the whole paragraph. Folks say the show became woke in recent years, and one of my characters has been affected, Shearer said. I voiced the black physician, Dr. Hibbert, who I based on Bill Cosby. Back then, he was known as the whitest black man on television. Then a couple years ago, I received an email saying they'd employed a black actor who then copied my voice. The result is a black man imitating a white man, imitating the whitest black man on TV. But that show is just like hot garbage. And I think like one of the deals is it's written by the managerial class, the same managerial class that writes all the Disney movies nowadays. Like there's no fixing Disney. There's no fixing Marvel, because you need to get like some creative in there, not a manager. And there's only going to be managers now, at least until it all falls apart.
The closest you have to a creative is James Gunn, and you've turned him into a manager.
Yeah. Well, that's some of those situations. Like I heard about it, like when they'd go and hire. So like, we know that they've hired like a couple of these documentary filmmakers to do the next Star Wars, and they have no experience in making like action movies type stuff. But one of the things that they know and do is that I guess they've already managed out like all the action scenes. Like there's an action scene department. They have a conveyor belt. Like just imagine like all the ways you can make it like a factory process. They've made it a factory process. And
Wow.
I've heard that the directors, if they get these different women directors on all these different shows, they've streamlined the action so it all kind of looks the same action. So they're never actually directing. Actually, what they do is they say they cast or hire a manager to have the name of the director on those shows. They're not actually directors of those movies. They're just, it's like hiring like today's diverse CEO of something that's already going and moving and that sort of deal.
Do you remember the Hudsucker proxy?
Oh yeah,
It's not exactly like that, but it's a little bit like that. Or like they just need a proxy, literally. Like we need to put this person out there as the face of the thing because we're doing this other thing behind the scenes.
That's totally like in line with what they say that they're doing with that stuff. But he brings it up. Oh, I love Hudsucker Proxy. More Coen Brothers. I saw
that was like one of their only flops. Like people didn't like that one, and it's because
had
like
a few flops, and some of the flops are my favorite ones. Like I love Hell Caesar. Like if you want some sort of show that talks about the way commies invaded Hollywood, honestly, watch Hell Caesar.
Still need to watch that one.
Yeah, me too.
I have a secret belief about the Coen Brothers that I think they always cast actors as exactly the idiots that they think they are.
Maybe.
Like I think they made it in Burn After Reading. I think they made Brad Pitt that complete idiot because they think Brad Pitt's that complete idiot.
Jesus,
I think the arrogant bonehead that George Clooney is in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, or in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, or what's in Hell Caesar. They think he's that useful idiot, because he's a useful idiot actor who becomes a commie after he gets kidnapped by the commies in Hell Caesar. And I think they're saying that Clooney is that guy. I really do. And what's the other one? Tom Hanks in that's a funny movie too. Tom Hanks is a professor who like kisses up and seems all nice and friendly to grannies, but he's really just a sneaky thief or something like that. I think they're calling him.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah. What's that movie?
I can't think of that one.
The Lady Killers. The Lady Killers, yeah. I think they keep doing it, man. I'm telling you.
I mean, it's good casting. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, the Karens. The Karens are a sign of managerialism and bureaucracy in the end of times, man. The end of times, I tell you. Change the subject. Did you guys watch any of that gender ideology crap that I sent you this week?
Which
gender
one? Ideology crap? We talk about that frequently.
You're gonna have to narrow it down a bit.
So both all over RedTube, Philosophy Tube. That's their channel, right? Philosophy Tube and that Avila person, both did defenses of queer theory and Judith Butler this week.
Oh, that's right.
Watch those. I know what you're talking about now.
Called Judith Butler the most misunderstood philosopher in the whole world, and told us right exactly what we already knew about Judith Butler.
I just love it. They say, like, you just don't get it. It's like, no, we get it. We don't believe it.
The reason I don't like Butler is because I get it.
Yeah, like I get it. I don't believe it. That's all.
That's one of the most frustrating things when talking to activist people. They talk about how you're not properly educated in it yet, because the assumption is once you're educated in it, you would agree with everything that I say. And I'm like, okay, look, I don't do this on any stance that I hold, right? I don't do this thing where when somebody, if I genuinely think somebody doesn't get it, then yeah, I'll say that they don't get it. But if somebody just disagrees with me, I never say, well, if you understood this subject, you would agree with me. It's fucking irritating.
But that's the infinite story with postmodernists. Postmodernists, either you agree or you don't get it.
Well, yeah, that's in the Exmormon Facebook group. That's all it ever is. I've been told, like, anytime I get in an argument about gender there, I never bring it up. They bring it up constantly. And so I'll argue with them. And it's always like, we're tired of having this discussion. We've tried to educate you over and over. I'm like, and I still disagree. How are you this stupid?
Yeah. Well, this little bit here was like a little piece of Darvo, if I ever heard any of it. Let me show you this little concept that Judith Butler supposedly has.
Danger, bullying, silencing, censorship, a comparison to nuclear weapons. It's not just that they're not listening. When they're invited to listen, it seems like that makes them feel as if they're under attack. And Butler has an
We're not listening, by the way, and we're under attack if we do listen.
Explanation for this. They say that these people are caught in a phantasm.
We're caught in a phantasm because we're not listening. Look at this.
Yeah,
Look at the person saying this to us. Like, this person's telling us that we're caught in a phantasm.
A dude who dresses up as a ridiculous-looking woman is telling me that I am in an illusion.
And
Okay.
only ever started dressing that way after being rejected by another dude dressing like a woman. And
Oh
wanted
yeah, this isn't even.
copies to
I
their
always
life.
forget this isn't even ContraPoints. This is
No.
ContraPoints Light.
This is ContraPoints Light, who has now been cast in a bunch of Star Wars episodes and a bunch of other different movies just for the performative stuff to hear. Performativity, that's the Judith Butler thing they talk about. And don't you guys understand? Don't you know that when Judith Butler is saying performativity, it's not saying performance. It's a technical philosophical term that means when you perform it, you become it.
Oh,
see, you weren't listening. You
are now Jedi gendered.
You weren't listening.
Phantasm is a technical philosophy term for a particular way of misinterpreting the world by projecting your feelings onto it.
You don't say.
Technical philosophy term.
That is so technical.
This is
Philosopher Michael
striking me
Nass
as-
says that it's a prism that refracts an as-if into an as-so. For example, the presence of a trans person with a penis in a public bathroom makes me feel as if I am under attack becomes I am under
Is
attack.
this the least self-aware video ever made? What in the fuck?
Candidate, yeah.
What in the fuck? You're a male.
That's pretty
And you're sitting here saying your entire ideology is based on you saying, because I say as if I am female, it is so. You're getting mad at them for doing a tinier version of the same thing? You're insane.
People use phantasms to avoid cognitive dissonance in the face of anxiety.
No way. They do not. That's who. Who? You're telling me that?
Oh, goodness.
For example, literature professor Darren Tenev says we use them
Literature professor.
about our own deaths. It makes us anxious. So when we picture our own funerals and what we would want to happen to our remains, we imagine ourselves as being gone, but also kind of still around. Like, oh, I'd love to be buried somewhere that has a nice view. Well, why? You're not going to be there to enjoy it. By definition, that's a contradictory dream. But the phantasm contains that contradiction and soothes our anxiety. It is as if I will still be there. I will still be there.
What is characteristic of phantasms is that they are placed and place what could be called the subject of phantasm on both sides of a border, a boundary, a limit, a frontier. When there is a border,
I hate humanities academia so much. It's so stupid.
A limitation, the phantasm lets one on the other side and not only provides a contraband access through the border, but also keeps one on both sides at the same time. There is no logic of the phantasm. The phantasm is phantasm because it allows one to stand on both sides of a border. For example, allowing one to imagine one's own corpse while still being alive.
Like he says, there's no logic to this. It's an exercise in
Why is there no logic to being able to imagine yourself dead while you're still alive, you knuckleheads?
What are you talking about?
Don't you not get Judith Butler? You don't get it. I mean, accept, or you don't get it.
trying to not make sense because you can't handle the conclusions that you would reach if you did. That's why people caught in a phantasm will throw out all kinds of claims that it doesn't really seem like they've thought through or have any evidence for. And when questioned on it, they'll say, "You're attacking me," because they're trying really hard to not think something. But what exactly? What is the thing that the anti-gender movement doesn't want to think?
Anti-gender movement.
When
did that become a thing? It's just anti-gender now. Just all of it.
What's funny about this video is the reason why they both came out with one this week. I think even James Lindsay had one talking about it being a sex cult as well. But it's a hot topic right now because they're actually making their responses to the cast review. They're actually getting painted in a corner. And one of the things they're saying is like, we were never talking about gender that way. We were never really doing it that way. We weren't saying change one sex to the other sex. Nobody ever said that.
It'll probably be different for different individuals.
I love this. Like, it always goes into this performative. Both the videos go into these performative, sudden, like, doomsday sadness performances. But performativity makes it real. Remember, Judith Butler taught me that. I listen now.
J.K. Rowling has been massively radicalized into the movement in the last few years. She's made a lot of very weird and false claims about trans people and gotten very aggressive when challenged.
Like,
people have
what?
speculated
That you
about
can't
her
change
trauma
sex?
maybe causing that, but
No
as a woman who's also survived an abusive relationship, that kind of public speculation has always felt a little bit gross to me.
Where'd the music go?
I don't want to do armchair psychology on anyone, even though I'm sure plenty of people would love to do some on me. It's just not the philosophy tube way. So maybe we can ask a more general version of this same question. Why are phantasms catching on? And not just about this topic, but all sorts of things. On the previous episode, we talked about 15-minute city conspiracy theories, and there's QAnon and conspiracies about the royal family. Sometimes the way that Zionists talk about Palestinians has a touch of the phantasm about it, as some Jewish scholars have noted. This is a really big issue, and it would be great if we could sort the whole gender thing out, because we've got a lot of real problems to deal with. We don't have time to be fighting imaginary ones.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. This could be a right-wing video. What the hell?
Don't you get it?
Oh. Graf and Korolchuk say there really are a lot of problems in the world, and a lot of them are systemic. A lot of women really are devalued. A lot of children really are living in an increasingly dangerous and warming world. A lot of people really do rely on their families to protect them from big institutions.
None of it's getting better. Like, they're all just tripling down into their
institutions and economic forces that
phantasms.
really will trample every tradition and really do dissolve everything into money. According to them, the anti-gender phantasm is an attempt to criticize the effects of capitalism without naming capitalism as the problem.
What the fuck? When the fuck did you tie that in? Did I miss the tie-in?
Don't you know how to Marxism, man? Have you ever learned how to Marxism?
No, I have, but there's usually some sort of tenuous tie-in. At what point was capitalism tied in?
There never was like a tenuous tie-in.
I mean,
it all just jumps immediately to, you know, as they've been like saying all over Twitter lately, like the issue is never the issue. The revolution is the issue.
No, I'm saying, like, if you look at a constellation, some constellations are ridiculous. You look at like Orion and you're like, okay, I mean, I get how you could get that. But this is like looking at two different stars and being like, that's, if you look at this, it's like drawing a painting of a lion eating a man. And it's just, and there's only two. Yeah, this is a Sistine Chapel and there's just two stars connecting it.
Yeah.
People see the bad results of the system that we have, but they're invested in those same systems. And so the solutions become unthinkable. Their criticisms have to be expressed as a kind of moral criticism.
A kind of moral criticism. There's no discussion to be had about the morality of dongs in little girl bathrooms.
I want you guys to guess how much time is spent at the beginning and at the end of the video asking for money.
Anti-genderism is the socialism.
Anti-genderism.
And the
Still
feminism.
going on that.
And the anti-colonialism of fools.
The anti-gender movement is so effective in attracting mass support because it is structured and legitimized as a conservative response to the excesses of neoliberalism. A crucial source of anxiety is the rampant individualism of contemporary culture, the erosion of community and growing instability of everyday life. Opponents of gender ideology attribute these trends to the influence of feminism and the sexual revolution. Anti-genderism conflates gender with those aspects of capitalism that are most frustrating to members of the working and lower middle class, especially to parents and would-be parents: precarity and the crisis of care resulting from unequal distribution of wealth. Instead of naming the problem in economic terms as injustice and exploitation, anti-genderism presents the world of capitalism's winners as degenerate and morally corrupt.
And here's where we tie it all together and bring it back to Judith.
Let's see it.
When the anti-gender movement say that gender is an ideology and sex is a fixed point, we now understand they aren't making an observation. They're making a demand.
It's us who are doing the.
Who's making demands?
It's us who are doing the performativity of demanding and idealism and everything.
When they say that you can't change sex, they mean you shouldn't be allowed to, because that would be dangerous. Not the kind of danger that is proven with evidence.
No, I'm saying it's literally impossible.
No, there's lots of evidence that it's dangerous. Of course it's dangerous.
Obviously it's dangerous to try. It's dangerous to invert your penis or whatever, but it's also impossible.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, like, just plain old logic. Like, I learned from 10,000 episodes of Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, there's no such thing as surgery without risk. Like, all medical procedures come with risk. That's part of what makes them that. Like, there's all kinds of rules about this. So just on that level alone, like, of course there's danger.
But the kind they want the state to posit and punish. What they want is morally righteous violence that restores an imaginary order, because they are anxious about real problems that they cannot or will not think about.
We won't, like, we're getting caught up in the gender thing because we won't address the capitalism.
We all know that capitalism is a problem. We really don't want to have to deal with it.
So we attack the gender thing.
Grr, I don't know what to be mad at, so I'm mad at trash.
I feel psychoanalyzed.
There's problems through the prism of unreality.
Unreality. We're mixed up in unreality. Here's Judith Butler to explain us how we're mixed up in unreality.
Phantasm allows it to contain whatever anxiety or fear that the anti-gender ideology wishes to stoke for its own purposes, without having to make any of it cohere. Depending on the
we don't have to cohere. Judith Butler's complaining about us not making something cohere.
Like,
Judith Butler's the first person I ever heard say the phrase "cat gender." You guys are incoherent.
If you ask people, like, oh, write like as ridiculous a parody satire as you can of this stuff, and throw in as like much projection as you can possibly think of, they wouldn't come up with this. They'd be like, oh no, this is too much. Like, this is like comedy levels of lack of awareness.
Well, here's the other one. Oh, look at this down. Do you see this down in the corner? I was watching watching
that too.
Zelf on the Shelf go be missionaries to some Christians in Texas. Two little missionaries showed up to the Christians in Texas to boringly make them see that, I don't know what. How conservatives created and canceled gender.
It was us. We did it.
from this channel. We pulled it before, Alexander Avila, but I actually wanted to pull up something
This
weirder
video is sponsored by Ground News.
from this one, because I was telling you guys about this, and I've been on about this for a little bit of a while. And when I say it, people sometimes think it's me inventing it, but no, it's the queer theorists inventing it. I guess we'll just go with
Intervention scholars working in trans studies can make at this juncture within the Academy is to defend the claim that transness requires that we understand, as we never have before, what it means to be attached to a norm, by desire, by habit, by survival.
Everyone has these attachments, trans or not. But how can trans identity and experience help us understand these normative attachments? I identify as a man and feel a strong connection to masculinity. That hasn't always been a good...
by the way, this person trans to female at 12-13 and then did not detransition, trans to male at 17. So they've twice.
Transgender?
Yeah.
Double trans.
Double trans. Yeah.
What is their pronouns?
It's like it's like in Germany where if you get 2 PhDs, you get a doctor for each PhD.
Yeah,
you
doctor,
get.
doctor.
Yeah.
My German teacher made us address him as Herr Professor Dr. Kaiser Kirplin.
By the way, I'm not playing the whole entire thing in this video, but if you watch this video, it's a shortened version, which you can find all over the place, but it's a shortened version of a Foucault book. And the reason I say it's that is it goes through and it paints like a wackadoo history of how history supposedly formed the concept of two genders through oppressive capitalism. Well, ultimately landed on that. You know, it went through a thing of like pre-modern times where nobody thought like this. Nobody never once said nothing like this, never, you know. And then moves because, you know, Foucault like saw in his book that nobody said anything about he said like something like nobody said anything about women being different than men until 1800 something. Okay, Foucault, yeah.
Woman wasn't really even a concept back then.
But then the modern science people, oppressively through their biopower, started formulating categories, oppressive categories. And then capitalism really reified it because capitalism was like, this works for us. And that's how we got two genders. And who's to say what's to say?
You're not even exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating.
That's the whole thing.
No, the whole thing is like this.
Like
the
thing is like
work around redefining of history. That's bullshit and sounds smart. And then if you stop and think about it at all, you realize it is not at all.
Oh Christ!
It's just like because like okay. Queer theorists, you don't get to mock Christians for telling the story of Adam and Eve and the apple. You just don't get to. Like,
okay, but this gets even weirder what the concept lands on here. But you got to realize that one of the things that both of them are having to do is because of the cast review, they're having to come out and say that the born this way concept, the dualism that we critiqued, right, was never really right anyway. Like they have to say, like that whole idea of like I was born in the wrong body, but I'm actually this other thing, this sort of like weird spiritual claim. They're having to come out and say we never really meant it that way. We're going back to Foucault and Butler, and we're just kind of saying like, who's he? What's it? It's all in the middle, man. It's nothing's one or the other, and nobody's born this or that, the other. We're all a query, and it's because they both started out talking heavily about the cast review, and one of the major flaws of the cast review is there was no trans people doing the cast review and all that. but they're having to run and hide, as
like
I
when the Mormons
talked about before. They're running away from born this way.
That's like when they search for they try to excavate an area that they think is the city of Zarahemla, and they find nothing, and they're like, well, there were no Mormons on the excavation team. So
yeah, exactly the same. But listen to like what concept they end up on of what does kind of create.
The way I now see and feel the world as a man has been influenced by the history of traditional masculinity as a dominating and oppressive force. I'd be naive to say it hasn't been influenced by that, wouldn't I? There are moments when I can feel that history in the ways that I process emotions, the ways I desire, the way I interact with other people. Those are parts of my identity.
I've always said, and I mentioned before, that what I really think this is like it's Foucault and Butler are people who took their dissociated neuroticism and turned it into an academic, writing, and helped other people put it onto themselves. And all it is written out mental illness, like written out neurotic mental illness.
I don't like. And my unconscious attachments to these aspects of toxic masculinity are my responsibility, but they have not always been my choice. And listen, I've made videos exploring the topic of toxic masculinity, how it's shit, how men need to take responsibility in overcoming it, but I want to be honest here. My journey through gender as a trans person hasn't always been the beautiful thing that liberals tell you that it is. That
You're
doesn't
not a
mean that there
trans
aren't
person
beautiful parts of
anymore.
being trans, or that
Oh, he's trans.
Double trans.
I get it, but I'm
He's
just like, wait a minute. You're a male that identifies as a man?
double
He's
trans.
He's Frau die trans.
Trans man that was once a woman.
trans men should feel ashamed for identifying with masculinity after we have fought so hard to claim that right. But the process of acquiring a gender identity, whether you are trans or cis, requires one to undergo the trauma of confronting a language that we took no part in creating. As a man, I am psychologically invested in the male category and am now unconsciously linked to that problematic history whether I like it or not. I, like all people, have to wrestle with these attachments. Psychoanalysts Avgi Sakatopoulos and Anne Pellegrini wrote a neat little yellow book called Gender Without Identity. In it, they make some seemingly sus claims. That no one is born trans or queer, and that, yes, gender identity, sexuality, all of that can be informed, mediated, and built from psychic trauma.
Psychic trauma?
All
Did he mean to say
sexuality
psychic?
and gender is built from trauma. Yeah, that's the new direction this stuff's going in. I'm telling you, like if you follow it into the future, if the stuff keeps going the way they're getting beaten to a corner through that other stuff, and they're in this video, one of the ways he says conservatives created this guy calls John Money a conservative.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So wait a minute. Did he just call himself a trans man?
Yeah.
What the fuck does he think of? I mean, I guess if nothing means anything, then whatever, but congratulations on being the first trans man who I will actually use he, him pronouns for.
It's a scary argument to make, especially when the right wing argues that queer people are deviants who are messed up in some way that cause their abnormal identifications. But Sakatopoulos and Pellegrini do not argue, as many right wingers do, that non-normative genders and sexualities are the direct result of traumatic experience. If trauma could turn you gay, then we'd all be gay. Instead, they argue that all gender, the gender of cis, trans, agender, non-binary, all gender experiences are in part shaped by the trauma inherent in human experience, both the trauma that is directly experienced by the individual and that which is intergenerationally inherited. For these psychoanalysts, gender and sexuality is a form of unconscious self-theorization. It is the way that our psyche poetically translates the mess that we are all handed by culture, by language, by our parents.
And so we're not saying trauma causes gender or trauma causes sexuality, but we can think of it as a force. And people do things with their force. We're not just stopped dead in our tracks by trauma. We can do things with it. And one of the things that we do with trauma as human beings is we actually elaborate a self, a gendered self, a sexual self.
Queerness is not the result of a specific or exceptional type of trauma. It isn't something that can be predicted or changed. It isn't a deviation from healthy developmental paths. It is neither bad nor good, neither functional.
So I think this like whole thing, once again, just like we said, Judith and Michel Foucault are putting their stuff on. You remember how like we talked about Robin DiAngelo, like noticed she was a racist, so then she wrote a book saying, "Hey, we're all racists," and you go, "No, you're the racist. You're the one who thought that way about those about people like that," and then. This is them saying like we're all whacked out from our wackadoo trauma for different gender stuff. No, we're just all that way. We're all that way. That's the way.
You know how like every now and then we just want to rip off our dicks and like something inside the wound. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You guys
it's like Kara. It's like Kara's like, hey, you know how we Mormons were all ultra conservative and we blocked people that criticized us and we didn't know anything we were talking about, and it's like, yeah, there you go.
I wouldn't be friends with anybody who wasn't part of my church. Remember how we were like that as Mormons?
Oh, yeah.
We were all like that, weren't we, Kara?
I think we found a new religion.
No, it is just the random way that our psyche translates our experience into attachment and identity.
We provide a framework that refuses born this way notions of queer and trans experience in order to show that what gives gender its intrapsychic grip is the fact that it proceeds from the subject's own autopoetic process.
When right-wingers claim
Jesus Christ. How
What?
many
Sorry,
words
that's
can
not
they
a
say
sentence.
without saying things?
That doesn't say stuff.
It said stuff. It's not born this way though anymore. That's the first and most important thing. The second most important thing is that it's our autopoetic.
Autopoetic. Shut the fuck up. That doesn't-
claim that gender or sexuality is the result of trauma or abnormality. They do this under the
But I like that these people are going to say that I didn't listen to them once again, even though I listened to them. I listened to your whole stupid YouTube channels.
the guise that one can change and therefore eradicate queerness. Sakatapolu and Pellegrini
And here I am making
emphasize
other people listen to it.
time after time that gender and sexuality is not something that we can choose or intentionally change.
But this
I remember like when I'd hear crap like this, because like so much of this it's not terribly different than like what I'd be put through in grad school. And I got to a point I'm like, what do I even tell people that I'm reading? Like it's 2004, 2005. Like think about that. And go, I'm supposedly in Spanish literature grad school. I'm supposed to be reading stuff like Huevo Usted Mañana, and I'm reading shit like this. And people are like, well, how's grad school? I'm like, well, there's stuff.
Did you know? Name one thing that isn't a social construct.
Yeah.
This highly mobile process also means is that we do not and can't.
All I remember is sitting there thinking like how none of this stuff would break into regular society and how horribly wrong I was.
not control our own or another's gender becoming.
Yet as much as these authors emphasize this point over and over, despite taking a hard stance against transphobia, despite them being queer themselves, despite the work resonating with a lot of other queer people, there's always that fear that their work could be reappropriated by the right-wing sensationalist machine. But they said because
Hi, I'm here appropriating, I'll go.
Trans people,
You guys are saying it's trauma.
deserve a better discourse.
We don't think people are born trans. We also don't think they're born normatively gendered or what has come to be called cis. We think that all gender and all sexuality is something people acquire in a very complex way. This isn't about choice. Like you wake up in the morning, pull down the Facebook drop-down menu and decide, I'm going to be this, right? But the other thing is that, again, we're psychoanalysts and we sit and we listen to people. We think that trauma may well play a part in how anyone comes into their gender or comes into their sexuality, not just trans people, not just queer people, but we think that trauma actually shapes the everyday experience of gender and of sexuality for everyone.
We can't let born this
What's
way
that
narrative
thing
keep
about
trans activists.
Who's the guy who says like if your theory explains everything, it doesn't explain anything?
Oh yeah, who was that? That's a good quote.
That feels like something Troy would know.
Captive in the hopes that one day
Isn't that Dan?
Is it Dan?
Dennett? I think it is.
That might be a Dan Dennett.
I think it is a Dan Dennett.
And folks will settle.
And we found out that Dracosophocus, Jasokopophasus. I've had too much Galilean wine, but he's what a cousin 7 times.
Oh yeah, he's cousins
Dan
of
Dennett?
Oh yeah.
Before the Crow's Nest.
We just doxed before the Crow's Nest.
No, we owe it to queer people to honor the complexity of gender as an autopoetic psychic self-translation in all of its beauty, violence, autonomy, force, and unintelligibility.
And in many ways, part of what
Did he say
Beauty,
unintelligibility?
violence, force, and unintelligibility. Those are good things.
I mean, I agree with you. He's just starting to say all of the good, like all of the things, all of my criticisms. He's just like, yeah, those are good things.
Yeah.
It's unintelligible. I know, isn't it awesome?
Anyway, some of that stuff, like I swear, if I go telling people that they said this, they go, "No, they didn't." Or, "Yes, they did." "No, they didn't." "Yes, they did." Let's look.
Also, you don't listen.
Also, I don't listen. Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget that you don't listen.
Let's go to something better. Quaco.
Oh, Quaco.
The origin of the human spirit. How did he get a hold of josephsmith.com? There's like some story behind it.
That
I
is
think I remember
pretty
him
nuts.
explaining it at some point, but
Do we need the ambience of this being at like normal speed to feel the spirit, or can we feel the spirit at
I
1.25?
don't know. That's a good question. We need Carden to tell us. He knows all the answers.
Was it Karl Popper who said?
Let me ask you a question. What are you? You might say, I'm an accountant. I'm a college student. I'm an athlete.
I'm an autopoetic mix of trauma and I don't know. No biology. Like, but that doesn't count.
No,
none of that matters.
But those aren't things you are. Those are things you do. So often we declare our physical traits.
Now we're getting all.
Wait, is he saying it's performativity?
Wait a minute.
Sounds
I
like it,
haven't
man.
watched this yet. Is he just going like full motivational speaker?
Full Gnostic motivational speaker.
This is his Simon Sinek arc or something.
Yeah.
To be who we are. But think about this. You have a no.
That's Heidegger, man. Are you are what you are, or you do are what you do. You do what you are, Are you becoming, or you being, or doing? Man, my brain.
I think Forrest is
But you're
right. I've
not-
been thinking about that. I think I could see Kwaku starting his own sect.
Oh yeah, I said the other day in the thing, like if he had the Joseph Smith following, he would take the Joseph Smith path.
A nose. You have eyebrows, but you're not eyebrows. You have hands, but you're not hands. This proves that our physical attributes are not who we are.
What the hell?
That's what that proves.
I like the jump for like that. There's a proof. Yeah.
Now, for 1 minute, I want you to pretend that technology exists that would allow you to transfer your mind, your emotions, and your consciousness onto a drive. And let's say your friend did the same thing, and you both transferred your mind, your emotions, and your consciousness onto a drive. And you switched them into different bodies. Which one is you, and which one is your friend? What if I were to tell you that the problem of identity...
Why does this feel like something I've seen in a cartoon or something like that?
It's because what
Feels like something I watched in the MTC or something
It's like
I would
Scientology.
watch-
It's yeah.
Or
No, this
something
is
I would watch
total-
like a mandatory work training that everybody sleeps through or texts or whatever.
Jeez, yeah.
and the insecurities of self-understanding have an answer. The world wants you to believe that you're just...
I'm just trying to queer everybody listening, because like you just heard about the worries about the cognitive dissonance of your phantasms, and then you heard about your autopoetic trauma and the way that can form you, and now you're finding out that you aren't what you is and you is what you aren't. And I'm just guessing by the end of this, I'm helping you get a scholarship to college or be able to get hired at a Fortune 500 company, because you'll be able to come out as one of John DeLynne's daughters or something who's asexual or something like that. I'm doing everybody a favor. I'm
Jeez.
getting you on the spectrum of people who get benefits.
a number. Women are taught their value decreases the older they get, and men are taught their value decreases the less money they get.
Is
It
that a
seems
thing
as if this
women are
whole
taught,
is-
or is that just like cold hard reality about?
Just kind of
Like-
reality, man.
Aren't those like some of the hard truth Kwaku likes to drop on Midnight Mormons all the time? He says like those exact things.
to make you feel bad about being you. If you have a past with addiction, crime, or misunderstanding, you're scarlet lettered, and you're told you can never become anything more than the worst things people say about you. We've become so disillusioned and beaten down by a world that wants to convince us that we're nothing. But here's the mystery. You are everything.
What the fuck? Okay.
That's the Gnosticism.
That's a
Fucking
Scientology.
retarded. Yeah,
That's Gnosticism stuff. Yeah.
I wish we could have had him on the show after he did that. 'cause- oh
And
my
you could
God.
ask him like what this all means.
I'd be like, "Hey, Kwaku, so that thing you did, what the fuck, man?
yeah, that's not. Come on.
God, that was funny as hell." I want to know what he's aiming at. I feel like Kwaku, his whole shtick is that he's aiming at 1,000 different things at once, because he does like being the quick on his feet, sort of edgy guy on Midnight Mormons, but on Twitter he likes being the social justice warrior, and then on this he's the fucking motivational speaker slash cult leader. What's he going for? I was pretty sure he was gonna go through like at some point. I think he's leaving his options open because I'm pretty sure one of those options is going through an ex-Mormon arc.
I wonder. Yeah, no, he just has that kind of vibe, doesn't he? He's got that kind of Anita Sarkeesian, whatever the next thing is. I'm on board.
Did I show you his tweet that was basically, I can't remember the exact wording, but the tweet was like, everything that Joseph Smith said is more important than everything that the modern prophets say. So like if a modern prophet says something that contradicts something that Joseph Smith said, then Joseph Smith was right and the modern prophet is wrong. Basically the opposite of what most Mormons believe. And like people would argue with him about it. And I'm like, well, for one, like, let's talk about, polygamy. Like Joseph Smith did polygamy. Modern prophets have stopped that. What's the deal with that? Like a lot of modern prophets basically disavow a lot in King Follett. And anyway, somebody posted that in the Thoughtful Faith group or whatever, and they were like, what did Kwaku mean by this? And I just said 90% of what Kwaku posts is bait. Like, why would he bait us? Like, because it's Twitter, man. And he's crazy also. I don't know if you didn't know that.
It does feel like some like people who get online clout or some sort of following, some of them like have banked up that moment where they make the major change to the other thing for their push, and they might save it for later. Like I always remember like Carolyn Borshenko, she was the leftist who became the right wing or whatever person, and
I thought you were talking about Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Who? Oh, Candace Owens. But it seems like, or Lauren Southern's totally doing it. Like she's doing the thing where like she might suddenly just switch entirely into a leftist feminist, and there'll be like a big online parade for them to be like, look who switched. Whoa. what was that? There was that one dude who did it. I mean, he was a debate me bro guy. Oh gosh, I forget his name. He came out as he just recently had his girlfriend and him shot.
Hunter Avalon.
Hunter Avalon, like he pulled like the guys. I've come out as the other thing.
And he got won over by Vosh of all people.
What?
Yeah. Well, and he was already stupid because I remember like in his sort of heyday of anti-SGW stuff, his shit would always pop up in the algorithm, so I'd watch it sometimes and I'd be like, this isn't. He would try to be funny. He's really bad at being funny.
Yeah, but it seems like a lot of online people are kind of like just saving in the bank their moment to pull the big fat switch to keep the career going for whenever that happens or something. But Kwaku definitely could have banked his ex-Mormon moment. He could have a Mormon Stories week and all that sorts of stuff,
Joseph Smith said, "The spirit of man is not a created being. It existed from eternity to eternity. And the soul of man has existed from eternity in the bosom of divinity." In other words, you have always existed. And there's never been a time in the history of everything where you weren't you. Think about what this means.
Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
I just had this imagining 100 years in the future when the Church of Kwaku of Latter-day Saints is a thing.
He's got the website. You can switch.
And that's what I'm just getting at, is because and somewhere there's a Sunday school lesson going on, and some kids like, well, how do we know that Kwaku had authority to speak for Joseph? And they say, because he had the domain. God,
We just check back slowly, across 6 months, and he slowly changes parts of the name. It's like Joseph L. Smith. Joseph L. Smith. Joseph L. Smith. Joseph L. Smith.
At some point, he's going to claim to be reincarnated Joseph Smith.
The rug just gets pulled out from under. It's but it's slowly. It just slowly happens, And wait a minute, I didn't even notice when that domain changed.
It means you are as ancient and eternal as Heavenly Father and Mother. It means you.
What? Didn't they have to born us first? Or is that Big Bang?
You want to go into the deep doctrine shit where they're intelligences or whatever, then
They just pulled our intelligences into spirits, and then
Yeah.
the spirits into.
A lot of Mormon deep doctrine is just kicking the uncaused cause can down the road. Really.
That's a good line, right? The uncaused cause can. The uncaused cause can. Like, oh my goodness, that's art.
It's a dance. It sounds like a dance from the
The
1930s.
autopoetic.
That's autopoetic. kick the uncaused cause can. I mean, that's like an album name, man. Kick the uncaused cause can. We need a little
Down
bit
the
more.
road.
Yeah. Except I was thinking, like, how could that be more alliteration?
A spirit child of God by adoption. And your role in this expansive reality is to explore forever.
But wait, all there is are trees? Where's this film?
Explore forever.
But
All
so
right.
that he got into that with us about talking about how he thinks it's multiple lives. So we must have like come and done this on a bunch of different planets and stuff.
It means there's no reason to be afraid for the
kind of getting deeper in the forest. Like, what if he gets lost or something?
next life. You see, we have so many assumptions in the church, like, will women be pregnant forever making spirit babies? And what part of my eternal family am I going to live with? None of those questions matter.
Those aren't assumptions. We know the answer to that. Of course, women will be spending forever making spirit babies.
We believe we are forced birth fascists, and we believe that they're just incubators. Why would that change after we die?
God is a forced birth
man. I mean,
fascist.
I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and never was I more a fan than when they brought out that guy to reinforce the what's the dystopian novel?
Handmaid's
Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale. Like, I'm part of the Handmaid's Tale team now because I'm a Chiefs fan.
They're all
because Butker
solved by this one piece of restored.
Did you see Bill Maher kind of came out in defense of Butker? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Maher has always managed to surprise me for 30 years.
There's been some weird stuff this week. He got kind of confronted with Hillary Clinton being an election denier, and he obviously had no idea that she ever did.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't see the end of that clip.
Did you see Joy Behar talk to him?
Yeah.
Bill Maher has been pretty full Trump derangement, but even he's starting to come around on this insane indictment shit. And he had that moment where he's like, well, Stormy Daniels said on my show that it wasn't a Me Too thing. And now she's saying it was. And Joy Behar confronted him on that and was like, well, I worry that saying anything like that might, like, what if I reveal this and it gets Trump elected? Bill Maher's like, what? You're not worried about telling your audience the truth?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, about that, Jared. Stereotyping Jews is terrible.
Oh man, it's almost time for Ozempic South Park.
I know, I'm so excited.
What's today? 23? So it's tomorrow.
You know what? I finally watched. I put it off forever, but last night I finally watched the South Park 25th anniversary concert special. It's just like,
I've never watched
like
that.
everything else they do. It's just so fucking great. Like,
What's it on? Is it on HBO?
I think so. I don't know. Where did I watch it? Like, because because they have Primus on, obviously, and they mix in a bunch of South Park stuff with Primus stuff, and the Primus song's like, "Hey, baby, you want to get down with me?" But it's Matt Stone in the voice of Butters who sings the lead on the whole song, and to make it innocent, because Butters is innocent, they add a whole backstory, because in the Primus song there's the whole speaking portion, and the backstory is that it's about alley cats having sex. But like, just so many wonderful little moments like that of like, yeah, Butters, like, it's live, it's on stage, but it's Butters singing that fucking Primus song about having getting down on top of the ladies, as Norm Macdonald says. And then just 10 million other things they did are just brilliant. And like, I don't know, like, I don't want to do a spoiler, but like, there's a super duper surprise guest that's pretty great.
Really?
Yeah, no, I mean, should I just spoil it?
Yeah.
Like, there's this whole thing where they're like, because Matt Stone plays bass on a lot of it, and he plays drums, and like, there's a whole thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna do Closer to the Heart. You got to learn the drums, and he worked really hard on the drums. and they surprise him when Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson actually come up. And
No
of course,
way.
No, and they introduce this by doing Blame Canada. They do Blame Canada.
No way.
And then they have the cartoon version of Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson doing this little bit about like, hey, these Americans are doing this something about us. And yeah, they set it all up. It's fucking brilliant. The whole thing, like, it kind of drives me nuts. Like, I don't know if anybody has had a more enviable career than those two guys, where like they spent their whole life flipping the bird at everybody and getting away with it the whole time, you know. But yeah, they just did it's a brilliant concert.
Man, what does it say about Quaku's video that we got distracted by South Park in the middle of it? Like, is there?
It's a dull fucking video.
Is there no way for us to save our souls?
But I can't even remember anything that he said because it's all just jargony bullshit.
Oh yeah, no. I just feel like I feel exactly the same as I do when somebody just spent 10 minutes trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner.
I feel like it's 1989 and I'm sleeping over at my grandma's house and I'm sitting in front of a dimly lit TV waiting for Adult Swim to come back on, and he's about to tell me a 1-800 number that I need to call to get Miracle Holy Water or some shit like that.
Yeah. No, really, it really is it's just that. It's just pure sales.
Risa says, "You are everything except for you, Jeff Durbin. You suck." Apology Studios guys. What is asexual, Risa? You don't know what asexual is? Like, it's 2024. It's okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
First of all,
John Delan's daughter has written a book.
It's not my
daughter has written a
job to do the emotional labor for you. All right, Risto. Google is a thing, and demanding my emotional labor is oppressive.
Also, BoJack Horseman actually has a little B plot about it, which is not at all obnoxious and frankly serves the narrative of the story and is like a character thing, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
You think I was lying? Go to Amazon right now, pull out you cheap Minnesotan. I don't believe you don't already have this. I can't believe it. I'm just upset. In 2021, Clara Delin wrote a little book of Ace, which is learning more about asexuality. And it disgusts me you haven't educated yourself yet on this. It's only $8.99.
You're basically a Nazi.
You're basically a Nazi. Should I buy it? Jared.
I've been wanting to buy it. But
you need Degenerate Book Club this one. I guess you might have some Degenerate Book Club tonight.
But also, like, was it 3 years later that she had the whole thing about, like, well, just because I'm ace doesn't mean that I don't have sex or sexual feelings or romantic feelings.
No, it was the same.
I'm sure the book says something about
the
that.
exact interview where she's talking about this. She goes on her.
That's
YouTube
a misconception about asexuality.
She calls herself it's seriously. She calls herself a high libido asexual.
hey, trauma, autopoetic, queer. Like, come on.
It's like saying I'm a hydrophobic sponge. You know, like
it sounds like you're having a phantasm about this because this is obviously true, and you have cognitive dissonance. You phantasming.
I'm a submarine, but I'm not watertight. I'm still a submarine. Fuck you.
Categories suck, man. Categories are for squares. Categories are for fascists. Don't you know that? I still got to figure out how I'm winning with the universe real quick. So sorry, you got to suffer through this. I know it feels as long as 2-hour church. Like, would you rather 2-hour church or the last minute of this video?
Jeez. Church was more fun.
Everyone who has ever existed has always existed and always will. You are eternal, from everlasting backward to everlasting forward. Whatever problem.
So that means I got time to play some video games, right? I think you should be able to play some video games if you got like eternity to do them.
I'm playing one right now.
You are?
Yeah.
That's not very alpha, dude.
Oh yeah, you're not alpha. Quake has been on it.
Quake has been saying on the Twitter that you're not alpha. Let's see. What's the most recent one he said? It says, oh, here it is. I'll pull it up. Pull up, you thing. Why would you ever play a video game when you could go to the gym instead? That's my question to you right now, Flip. Did you also realize that you are forever, and like sometimes forever's got to get the pump, and if you want to be part of everything, you gotta, I mean, maybe you can consider testosterone replacement, because like testosterone is part of the everything, you know.
It really is I mean, this stuff is just like the Scientology video that they made me watch when I went to the Scientology Center. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you are eternal spirit. You existed forever. You have an eternal potential. Keep
That all
listening
comes
to me.
from, he says Joseph Smith is a theosophist, and the Scientology comes from theosophy too. It's a grandson of theosophy.
Maybe currently depressing your spirit, it's not more powerful than you, because you were here long before it began, and it'll be here long after it's gone. And perhaps this explains the reason God gave to Moses when Moses asked.
Actually, if I think about it, this is the story of Zelda pretty well. I mean, I'm almost to the end of it, and he's giving away the endings. No spoilers, Kwaku. I'm almost about to beat Ganon, and you're giving me spoilers.
Who are you? And God replied, I am that I am.
Larry. No.
Because when you're forever, the best way to explain you is you.
I want to get dressed up and talk in the forest. Like if
Yeah, I want to do a parody version of this.
But
that's an album name. Get dressed up and talk in the forest.
I want to do it without a script and just see what comes out. Maybe theosophy will come out like fully formed and like, I'm a believer, man. It just like comes out your mouth when you're here. When you're put on the spot, you gotta. What's the deal with that one, Tree?
I feel like kind of like.
Wait, what was that quote?
Yeah, I kind of wonder with a guy like Quake, he's the kind of guy, if you gave him mushrooms, he's like, yeah, I don't feel anything.
I take my ring from my finger and liken it unto the mind of man.
I know.
The immortal spirit?
Oh, it's one eternal round. Is that what he's getting
It
at?
has no beginning.
Wow.
Oh, it's like the Ouroboros, man. The Ouroboros.
Ouroboros.
Yeah. I saw somebody like making a joke that they were taking like notes in a class and they were learning about the Ouroboros, and they just wrote in their notes, donut. There's a donut. So if I'm an eternal being who can auto-poetic myself into asexuality if I please, I think I don't know. Check this out. This is part of eternity. This video is part of eternity.
Well, I have the worst anxiety, I have the worst OCD in the entire world. Like, I'm on meds for it. But
Oh,
like,
I have OCD too, and I'm on meds for it too.
what meds?
Lexapro.
Prozac.
Cute.
Jesus Christ.
That's eternity happening right now, folks. Eternity's all around us, just going on.
Jesus. I like, man, that's it. That thing you sent us about was it John Mulaney?
Oh,
that was awesome.
He has therapists watch stand up.
Therapists watching the stand up. It's going to be on Netflix.
Because I mean, there's no reason to believe that those guys aren't totally serious, and that guy's like, oh, I would prescribe mood stabilizers
like immediately
after watching 45 seconds of stand up. Like, and it's just things like that terrifies.
Like every single diagnosis in the world too. Like, oh, I think they're probably got some OCD. The other one says, no, I think it's probably some dissociative personality disorder. They will find a problem. You want to see Bill Maher find out about?
Then you have to concede elections. And he hasn't conceded the last one. He's plainly not going to concede this one. He now has all of his sycophants around him parroting his party line, which is when they ask them, will you abide by the election results? Yes, if it's a free and fair election, which is another way of saying if we win. You really think this is a place this country should be?
I'm not going to defend the election denialism. I'm not one of those people who believes
what's more
that.
important? What kind of country do we have?
How about my daughter not going into a locker room and seeing a man's penis?
That's important too. I'm talking about the difference between this and something fundamental, which is our democracy. The fact that you have to respect who wins an election, or else you don't have the kind of country we've always had before.
How about?
I mean, I feel like we keep going around the roseberry bush about this, and we're not going to make any progress. So let's stop talking about it. But
I mean, you keep saying sort of I'm nuts because I don't see the difference between the elephant and the mouse, and I'm telling you I identify them differently than you do. Hillary Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
She first of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump,
and then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
Okay, I mean, you only get two choices.
That's right.
You get Donald Trump, a criminal, election denier who is going to transform this country into an authoritarian place like we've never seen before, or you get Joe Biden with all his flaws.
Also a criminal.
Okay, what is his crime again?
Special counsel Robert Hur said he committed felonies, but he wouldn't indict him because he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. He couldn't get a conviction in front of a jury.
And what was that crime? That was the
classified documents all over his basement, his garage, everywhere.
Well, okay. So here's the difference. Immediately, Biden, he shouldn't have had them. Immediately, he said, "Oh, sorry, my bad," and gave them back.
That's why he didn't charge with obstruction. But Trump has two classified documents, pieces to his case. One is you had them, and the second is you obstructed justice when we demanded them back. So, okay, against Biden, you don't get charged with obstruction. But number one, where's the classified documents charged against him? He's also a felon.
You got your story. I look.
Why can't the difference be one actually had the ability to declassify documents and keep them because he'd been the president, and one didn't because he should have been looking at documents only in a skiff while a sitting U.S. senator, and clearly he stole classified documents that he wasn't entitled to and never had the ability to declassify them.
Yeah. Maybe you know more about that than I do. I don't remember that part of it. And I always don't trust anything I hear until I vet it from the other side, because everybody sort of has their one-sided view of it, and narrative is more important than truth. I know this is the right-wing narrative. I'm
not like that, Bill. I care about facts. I practiced law for 10 years. I want to get the cases right more than I want to get clicks. And I have a lot of lefties who watch me. So I'm not like that. I like.
Yeah, no, like, because I was surprised because for 4 weeks in a row, Bill Maher was like bang, 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 ripping on the ridiculousness of the left. And then it was like a couple weeks ago where I sent it to you guys, was like, he's still pushing Russiagate. And it's like astounding at this point that anybody would push Russiagate.
Yeah, that's
and
insane.
Yet he's still going at it. Although that's the other thing, like Bill Maher, the thing that's always been so surprising about him is that, like, because Bill Maher was the the philosophical naturalist, scientific deconstructionist, new atheist 10 years before the new atheist movement, right? And the thing that Skeptics Guide to the Universe would always talk about, like, the guy could not get off the vaccine thing. The guy was the all-time old school, still is, vaccine denier. Back from the old Andrew Wakefield vaccines cause
the vaccines that were actual vaccines and
yeah. But he always got a pass for all those years.
Wait, he doesn't like vaccines? Like he's
he was anti-vaccine in like 2002.
He has always been a pharmaceutical conspiracy guy. Totally.
Yeah, he was on with he was with Jenny McCarthy back in the day when I think I saw a funny.
I think I saw a funny.
There was some sort of media thing that here it is. It was just a media. So that's it. After 2 years of lockdowns, it's let's move on. I'm sorry. I don't recall saying I'm sorry. Yeah. What was the other crap I was gonna watch? It wasn't John DeLeon. It was. Sorry, I'm brain farting. There was like a whole other video that I was gonna watch. Jenny Nicholson. Did you watch the?
I didn't watch this one.
I watched almost all of it. It's the first time I've ever actually watched Jenny Nicholson, and it was weirdly fascinating.
I generally like her. She's got some weird takes, but she's honest. Like one of her funnier ones ever was just being completely disappointed with that third Star Wars film and just being like, "Hey, screwed this." And she was somebody who wanted to love Disney,
Yeah.
But this is pretty interesting. Like 4 hours of covering the failure that was the Star Wars hotel. And my goodness,
I did not realize what all that was like. I had no idea. It cost so much. I had no idea it was like just a giant fucking prison you went into.
You imagine going to Disneyland and paying $6,000 and being stuck in this thing for 2 days.
Wait, you can't get out of it?
Well, like, you know, like you're allowed to leave, but like
you just have like your every minute of your time completely planned out.
Like you're paying to be in that fucking building the whole time, because otherwise, like you're ostensibly you're missing out on all.
You
kinds
miss
of
the story. You
entertainment.
miss the point. You're supposed
So
to.
I'm sure you can't.
You're supposed to be role playing a whole story
without paying for Disneyland.
Yeah, well, you'd have to do Disneyland on a different
20
day
minutes
or
talking
something
about
like
the
that.
pricing thing. Like, no, there's all kinds of things about the pricing. The one thing that always bugged me is that whenever she talked about Disney cutting corners, she's like, "Why would they do this? They're just being stingy." It's like,
yeah,
yes, like, yeah.
Why? Well, because
that whole
that's
thing
how
looks
that
like
works.
such a nightmare to me. Like if I was forced to go do it, like I would probably say no if they paid me $6,000 to go do it, let alone pay $6,000. Like if they're saying 2 days, $6,000, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd do it for that.
Yeah, but like one thing I was surprised like that she said like the basic room was fucking tiny.
Yeah,
like itty bitty, and like that's
You're paying for the Star Wars experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a lot actually come to think about. Like thinking back about it, there's a lot of great stuff where it's like because you know it's supposed to be a spaceship, so your room is a windowless room, which is a prison cell, and so they installed like this you can turn it on and off. And it's like this window that's like, you know, this outside Star Wars, you know, space and stars and planets effect, right? And like she talked about how like the problem is if you turn it on, it has this like white border all around it, which you can't sleep with it on. And so like a whole bunch of people have already like said like, you know, even before it closed, they're like, hey, bring a bunch of gaffing tape so that you can turn off the white border so you can have the window on while you go to sleep. Because, you know, like, I mean, she even mentions it's probably like a thing to help the effect. Like, you know, the contrast probably helps make it look less like a, you know, TV screen projecting an image. But like, yeah, it's just like, well, you pay for this thing. Like, you're only in the room to sleep, right? And then one of the things they give you is like the fucking simulated space window. But then they make the simulated space window a thing that you can't have on while you're sleeping. You know, like. You can't go to bed and looking at the stars. It's just,
it looked like a dang nightmare and terrible. But that's a real interesting video. I mean, I think it's almost worth the 4 hours of a watch because she got to go experience. Not a bunch of people got to experience it. It was only open for like what, a year, and then
it wasn't open for very long.
Man, what? But if you ever wanted something that's like obviously failure of managerialism itself, like that's the whole thing. Like that thing obviously just sucked from too many chefs in it. How are you supposed to autopoietic if you aren't in the hotel? Divas over on Mormon News Roundup autopoieticed himself into a month-long fast.
What?
Did you?
Yeah, that I
was
confused about that.
Yeah, didn't you see that? That's what I posted on. That's
I
why
didn't
we
know
were
it was
talking about it.
Days that was doing it.
Yeah,
I
here.
didn't
Fasted
see the video.
for 4 weeks. I fasted for 4 weeks. Absolutely no food, only water for 4 weeks. I'm going to tell you all about it. My name is D-Base, and it's May 19th, 2024. Now, I'm going to give you some before pictures and some after pictures, and I'm going to tell you what I did every step of the way. Now, I say water only, but technically, I also drank a little bit of coffee and some extremely watered down juice. I also chewed some gum about 1 time per day. Most of those have about 5 calories. And I took some supplements. Most of those were 0 calories, although some of them did have some calories in them. Those supplements were in powder form, and you would dissolve them into water. And it included things like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, sodium, potassium, things like that. Unfortunately, because of the nature of what I was doing during this fast, I couldn't weigh myself every day, but I started at around 220 pounds. And I'm going to show you some full body pics of before and after. You'll also be able to figure out what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so he goes in talking about like how the mission helped give him, well, his parents are one thing, but then the mission helped give him eating disorders because he never got enough food on a mission.
Where did he go on the mission?
He went to Washington, D.C., over there he lives, and the same place my little nephew's in, and my nephew was in his ward, and he went and let my nephew go over to his house and have some pizza or something like that. But yeah,
it's like I'm trying to think, like, why wouldn't you have him out to eat in Washington D.C.? What's the membership like out there?
I don't know. It doesn't sound great, but I mean, there's some of his pictures, but it just kind of looks like face pictures going through. I don't think he showed like body pictures.
I was promised full body, D-Vase, goddammit.
Jared is the proper degenerate guy. He needs full degeneracy. He needs maximum voyeurism.
Time after 28 days. Divas, I don't know why you did this. I mean, I guess there's all sorts of people into this sort of a fasting. 28 days sounds.
If you you actually got to be careful eating after you've fasted for that long.
Well, he only ate like some soup and some salad.
Yeah, well, you got to eat slowly. Is the thing.
I just get the feeling this is one of those things where, like, if we knew the absolute truth, that there was a more caloric intake than he's copying to.
It seems down near impossible to me. I mean, he said there's some watered down juice, but I mean, I guess some people say if you get like enough water and some of that other stuff, it's survivable, especially if you're fat or have some fat at the start of it.
So longest I've ever gone is 5 days, and like it's like the first 2 days are the hardest, and then after that, it's like you kind of, I don't know. I'm sure your body kicks into some mode where it's like, I don't have any food. I need to pump some adrenaline or something to the system so that he goes hunting or whatever. And so then you feel pretty good and alert for the next little while. I was going to go 7 days, but by day 5, I was like, man, I could smell like mustard from 1.5 miles away. And I was like, yeah, I'm now. This is, I think after 3, so it looks like there's a lot of, there can be benefits to fasting a small amount, but it's everything I've read. It seems like it's diminishing returns after 72 hours.
What do you mean? Like diminish? Like what are the returns you're looking for? Just losing weight?
There's losing weight and just kind of, I don't know. It does help you feel more alert. It kicks you into ketosis really quickly and shit like that. But like it feels like everything, every bit of good that it makes you feel starts to sort of slant off after the 3 days is up. I don't know.
There's trade-offs? No way.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that was, you hear Henry Cavill talking about his training for like anytime he had to do a shirtless thing. They have to fast from water, like in order to look absurdly. I mean, Chris probably knows all about this.
No. I know all about this.
Yeah,
story.
Henry Cavill talks about like how
we dehydrate
at
ourselves.
Some point after like 2 days of not drinking hardly at all, you can start to smell water. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, we the last week and a half, we dehydrate ourselves, take like a diuretic, and start over drinking what is it, like non-distilled or distilled water, and then going down to like the last 2 days, like you slowly wane off. You go down like a gallon, down a gallon, down a gallon, and then the last 2 days you go down to nothing, all while still on the diuretic. Which I think this is the thing that made me pass out the first time I was doing it. A lot of people say that sort of process that people also use to weigh in for fighting stuff is more dangerous than the actual fights. And I believe that's true. It's crazy.
I mean, the stories you told me were crazy.
But I think a long fast like that is going to be dangerous too. I'm sure. I also hear that the weight just comes back on just as easy.
Well, because most people that are doing fasts and shit like that are looking to lose a lot of weight very quickly. And if you're looking to lose a lot of weight very quickly, you're not actually going to do any lifestyle changes at all.
Well, if you watch the whole video, I mean, I'd say Divas is kind of like, well, first off, I mean, he says he's doing it for the memes and the clicks for his channel because maybe he'll get like a bunch of people to look at it or something like that. But then he also says, I mean, it's a little bit like he's suggesting it for people, and it is not something I would suggest. Never, no how, ever.
I mean, I would suggest things like a 24-hour fast.
Sure, fasting's fine. I don't like people who do intermittent fasting. Like I got nothing against that either.
Intermittent fasting is the easiest method for me to lose weight. Like, if I just tell myself all I'm going to do is eat dinner, then it's fine. It's simple and not as terrible as most people make it seem.
So a lot of people go and do stuff like those cleanses and that sort of deal. You want to know what the best cleanse is out there?
What?
Your stinking liver. Your liver does
Yeah, I know.
it. Like,
anytime I hear cleanse, I'm like, okay.
You just start eating healthy, eating clean, good stuff, and your liver will cleanse you within 4 days. Like, you know, it doesn't take like that long, like just as quick as doing any sort of like longer cleanse or something like that. Like if you just switch to not overtaking, not like shooting your insulin up, not overdoing like any sorts of carbohydrates or anything like that, and get water in, your liver will cleanse your body and you will be feeling way better and lose water weight and all that sorts of stuff. But it's kind of the same thing with like food and diet and all that sorts of deal. Like every time I start dieting, all I do is just eat, and it's enough every single day, and I just go on the same amount every day. It's boring, but it's enough food. Like it's a lot of food, and all you do is just like keep your nose down and don't look up, and it happens. Like it'll just happen. Like there's no need to do big old extreme things, and I don't know, but my stuff sounds extreme to people, but it's only just extremely boring. But like the amount of food I eat is not extreme. Like I think people would have a hard time eating the amount of food that I eat, like on the level of it being too much. But if you eat stuff that's just more meats and lean things like that, it's a lot more bulk in your stomach. You know?
That's it. Now, after I ate that soup and salad, boy, I was full after just a few hundred calories. You got to gradually refeed and get your organism going again.
I mean, obviously he did enough because I mean, it does look like his face like dropped a whole
yeah.
lot. And
No, well, and he's right. Once you fast for multiple days, like that first meal back, they always tell you have to eat slowly or you're gonna fuck up your stomach. But you'll think you're gonna eat like a feast, and then you like sit down with your burger and you take like 3 bites of it and you're like, I'm full.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, I think like fasting here and there, like some people say 2 times a week or intermittent fasting, I think that's all good. But like a 4-day fast, I don't, 4 week fast, I don't know about that.
It's funny anytime
I do not sign off.
It's funny anytime you tell like a Mormon that you're like, yeah, I did a 3-day fast or whatever. They always freak out because they're like, how is that healthy for you? I was like, I think it's all right. It's not that big of a deal. And they're like, can you go 3 days without drinking water? No, your guys' version of fasting is fucking terrible. There's no amount of time that going without water is good for you.
Anyway, stay safe, D-Biz. I hope it keeps working for you. You want to talk about this book at all yet, or do you got to finish it?
This book is terrible. I'm trying to think of. Let me look. I got some notes on it so far. So, the thing that I took notes on because it was interesting.
Ready to Jared's Degenerate book review.
So
say where you heard from this book or about it.
Dan McCraney. Dan McCraney recommended book.
Yeah. We're gonna learn.
So the first thing you gotta like ask anytime somebody talks about whiteness is like, what do they mean by whiteness? And really, like if you could distill it to one thing, whiteness is just Western culture. That's all it is. And it's Well, it's more complicated than that because it's also just whatever boogeyman we currently need it to be. If you believe in the Second Amendment, for example, whiteness. If you're a black guy that believes in the Second Amendment, whiteness. It's just badness, and it's difficult. It's difficult to explain to people who don't get this that it's probably a bad thing to connect like an unchangeable feature of a person to badness. if you want to make a word that means bad and you were to just say Asian, let's just call all bad things Asian from now on.
Yeah,
Then
and now you
it's
can just
pretty
like
easy.
reverse engineer it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy to show them like, yeah, no, that's probably bad because then people will start to think that Asians are all bad. Anyway,
Yeah.
so a lot of this is just the first couple chapters. I haven't gotten super far into it. They're like interviewing black churchgoers about how terrible it must be that like their white churchgoer counterparts get annoyed with them for shitting on Trump. And like one lady's bitching about how like after George Floyd, my pastor didn't address George Floyd in church. I'm like, look, lady, I feel like if I were a churchgoer, I would look for church to be a refuge from references of George Floyd. Because that's all we fucking heard about for 2.5 years. Anyway, one of the interesting things is they're trying to prove that whiteness hasn't infected all these religions, whatever this vague concept of whiteness means. And they called up a bunch of people that were religious and asked them a few questions. The first question they asked them was, do you think that the Bible should be considered when making choices? And 50% of these Christians said always. So they focus on that 50%. And of that 50%, they asked these questions. And the first one was like a control question. It was like, do you believe that since you believe that the Bible should be used to govern your personal choices, do you believe that you should not use crass language per this scripture? And then they said they read the scripture to them. And they're all like, yeah, we believe that. And then they asked them 3 different questions. I can't remember what the second 2 were because I didn't research them quite as much. But the first one was laws that protect, like, should there be laws that protect foreigners from being treated unjustly as per Deuteronomy 24:14?
I thought the first question was going to be, did you laugh at Blazing Saddles?
So they ask him this question and they're trying to talk. They're trying to see, like, illustrate to you, like, see, isn't it terrible that they all said that, yeah, the Bible should tell me not to have crude language like it did in this verse, but it shouldn't tell me how to treat foreigners like it did in this verse. The problem is they're clearly gearing them up for this whole, like, we have an immigration debate going on right now. And it seems like all that the media is giving attention to are the people who want full-on open borders and the people who think that immigration is just a terrible idea altogether. Like that's all that people are really talking about. Anyway, they didn't read the actual verse. So the verse that they used to justify
All right, let's see it.
Is Deuteronomy 24:14. And it said, "Thou shalt not oppress an hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of thy strangers that are in thy land within thy gates. At his day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and setteth his heart upon it, lest he cry against thee unto thee." So, like, if you go to like the more modern version of the Bible, basically what it's saying is, like, you shouldn't rip off poor people. You also shouldn't rip off poor people that don't look like you. You shouldn't rip off poor people in your nation. You also shouldn't rip off poor foreigners. And if somebody does a job for you, you should pay them. And that's what it's saying. And so I don't know.
Is that Dan McClellan approved? You don't think he'd be able to find?
No, McClellan could definitely, like, twist this around and be like, well, he's clearly renegotiating the text, and if we were to renegotiate the text in order to lift the voices of marginalized folks, we can clearly see that what this means is that we should allow indiscriminate open borders for all.
You're really good at that.
You just got to be really smug and talk in a like sort of a false quiet cadence.
Smig.
Anyway, that's about as far as I got. The second question was like, should you apologize for the sins of your fathers? And it gives an example of Nehemiah apologizing for the sins of his fathers and his nation or whatever. But it's actually really funny because that first scripture that they used, the Deuteronomy one, to talk about the not mistreating foreigners, the very next verse in Deuteronomy says that like we shouldn't punish people for their father's sins, which is kind of defeats the purpose of their second question.
So whenever we do like our big grand episode on Dan McClellan, we're going to title it The Desolation of Smug.
We got to show what our fit is today. My fit is green. I get Hulk. This Incredible Hulk. I'm totally into Marvel. That's all I care about.
My fit is Unruly Child today.
Jesus, drink grape juice. Well, you guys might be impressed.
I don't know what fit is. What's fit mean?
Dan McClellan at the start of every video does a
today's fit
of showing what he's wearing, which he takes from like TikTok trends of like girls who like talk about their fit, and so now he shows his different Marvel
irony.
Day. Like today's fit is Spider-Man something. You might be impressed with Dan McClellan. You might be impressed with Philosophy Tube. You might be impressed with Kwaku. You might be impressed with Shawn McCraney. You might be impressed with all these different people, but I'm going to tell you what. Ain't none of them got shit on my guy. My dude. My new hero. Terrence Howard. Did you guys listen to any of this?
No, but I heard Jack White ripping on it.
This guy's wild, man. Check it out.
When you say rebuild the periodic table, what do you mean specifically?
Well, the way the periodic table is laid out, the periodic table they have now,
Let's see.
it looks like a box. It looks like a straight box. But they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E. Same key of E, 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to silicon, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt, and it'll be 324 hertz. It's take the angles of incidence or the tone.
Is he gonna say something?
The color, like you can turn color back.
Could you just
learn
is
from
the
this?
Spirit for a minute? You don't know who Terrence Howard is?
No.
You've never seen Empire? I would have thought you were one of the guys who went and Jussie Smolletted the dude and said, "Hey, Empire." Like I was pretty sure that was you.
Flip's a big Marvel fan.
Everything I've learned from Empire, I learned from the Jussie Smollett case.
You know Don Cheadle in the Marvel universe.
I don't.
You don't know
he used to be
about
Terrence
the
Howard.
first Oscar rap song, "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp," that won the Oscar from the Terrence Howard movie. I forget what it was.
What year was that?
Hard. I remember like right after Jon Stewart said, "For those counting, Hard Out Here for a Pimp, 1 Oscar. Martin Scorsese, 0 Oscars." Empire Terrence Howard. Which was the
Martin
start of
Scorsese
DIA
has 0 Oscars?
I think has he gotten one since? He hadn't by the time the movie is called Hustle and Flow.
Oh.
What else was Terrence Howard in? Terrence Howard was in
so
Iron Man.
All the movies I know him from are kind of dumb. There's like August Rush. There's he was in what's that cruise ship one where he pretends to be gay and he goes on a gay cruise and I don't
He's
remember.
in that one?
Yeah, or no, that's Cuba Gooding Jr. I always get those two confused.
I think both of you watched so much Empire that you snuck and chased down Jesse Smollett in the middle of the night of Chicago.
Why can't I think of
and
anything else Terrence Howard's in? So he was in the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah, he's in the first Iron Man. He got famously replaced by Don Cheadle because he tried to negotiate for too much money afterwards.
Oh, he's in Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, Hustle and Flow is the one that Hard Out Here for a Pimp won the Oscar for. I can't believe you don't know that. That's 2005.
Big Mama's House. You haven't watched any Big Mama's House?
I'm not.
Terrence,
I haven't.
Man, he's
I
in a
believe
bunch of
Flip has not
stupid
seen all
shit.
of these films. Like you claim to be a film buff. You've seen all the Kurosawa. Like, how do you know Kurosawa and not Terrence Howard?
I guess that's it. I guess I just must be racist.
Is
He's
Terrence
in-
Howard only?
He's in Crash. You didn't see Crash? That won the Oscar.
I didn't
too.
see Crash.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't seen any Oscar movies.
He's in Prisoners. Prisoners actually is pretty good.
I thought you were saying he was in prison. Because I
probably
assume that
too.
because I'm a racist.
Actually, he said he was in prison, I think, in that show. Four Brothers. You didn't see Four Brothers?
That's too many brothers.
The Butler. You remember The Butler? The Oprah movie, The Butler?
No, I did not see that Oprah movie.
How is Flip not up to speed with culture, man? He was in a Dead President.
No, I missed this stuff.
I don't know how you don't know all this
If
culture.
it's anything
like
that
there's
was
just been
ever
so much
Us
culture
Magazine.
flying under your nose. All
This
this
must be really embarrassing for you.
No, like I mean, right now, like I couldn't. If you put up a Drake and a Kendrick Lamar, like pictures of them, I wouldn't know which one was which.
I would know
Not
Drake
exactly.
because he looks dull. Like he looks boring. That's all I
See,
ever
now
think.
I have a clue.
Not only would I know both of them, I've broken down the entire rap battle, and I know what all the little secret double, triple, quadruple entendres are getting at in there, because I am a fan of culture, and I go outside of my race. Actually, I don't really know that much about it, but Get Rich or Die Trying. I wonder if that movie is actually like any good, just as like a boring watch. Anyway, back to learning you about the reality of reality.
Sound based upon it's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long or
Obviously.
much longer. So all you have to do is keep dividing light by 2. You keep dividing light by 2, and you'll ultimately get back to the audible sound of it, because there was a relationship between light and color, sound and tone, matter and shape. Walter Russell's periodic table that he put together. Now you compare that to Mendeleev's periodic table, and you'll see something completely different. It's unwinding.
Whoa.
And you see there's a relationship that hydrogen.
So you had figured this out at a young age?
I had already seen this. This was all inside of that palace. I had access to it, and I knew the
So you
relationship.
saw this in dreams.
I saw it as a circle. Everything was a full circle laid out, and each area was just expanding, like wrapping.
Like what's Kwaku really got? Like Kwaku, come on. Like,
I wonder what he thinks he's saying.
Rag around your hand. The
That's
first wrap,
amazing stuff.
you know, it's so tight. This is how I saw it more so, but as a vortex, you'll see there.
I actually knew he was already like this. I'd heard him a while back go off saying that. I think he talked about it in Joe Rogan here. I haven't listened to the whole episode, but I've heard about him talk about it before, that he came up with his own math, and his own math says, how can 1 times 1 be 1? That can't be true. It has to be 1 times 1 equals 2. And I can prove that 1 times 1 has to equal 2. And he came up with his whole entire own math system.
Does he know what 1 times 1 means?
Hydrogen.
Oh, come on, Jared. Can you feel the spirit a little?
Carbon, silicone, cobalt, rhodium, they're all bonded. They're all sit as the middle point between 2 noble gases. So those things don't really exist. It's only one substance. Now, the problem is the first thing that we're able to perceive is hydrogen. That's the first visible element, because before it is too dense for us to perceive it. You understand what I'm saying? As you reach into the next octave,
I think you guys would be digging this if he was like in a suit in a forest.
I know. That's,
And they
we're,
call
just we're just being judgmental.
at a bisexual.
Did he
tone.
create this chart?
No, that's Mendeleev. How do you not know Mendeleev?
because the carbon.
That's the name he said on. That's some other
Isn't
wackadoo
that
who
the
labeled
genetic
that
guy? Isn't that the guy who discovered
Mendel.
like?
That's
Oh,
Mendel. Yeah.
who's Mendeleev?
Somebody even smarter.
He's Dmitry Mendeleev. Don't you know Dmitry? Russian chemist and inventor.
Oh.
Dimitri's the genius of
Oh,
Mendeleev's
he
periodic
formulated the
table.
periodic law. He looks
Dmitry
kind of
Mendeleev.
Marxy.
He does.
Well, now you know, and now you know more Russians.
Dmitry Mendeleev. Mendeleev. They've been saying it wrong the whole time. That's why I didn't know who they were
That's why
talking
you
about.
didn't get it. You would have known.
Yeah.
Oh, Mendeleev. God.
You fucking doinks.
The part where lithium behaves, lithium is contractive, beryllium is contractive, boron is contractive. But the moment you get to carbon, you balance it out, gets to a perfect balance of plus and minus 4. So it's a double tone. Nitrogen is -3, oxygen is -2, fluorine is -1. Now the balance of this, all of those are mates. Fluorine and lithium naturally mate. If you have lithium bonds, any other element, the moment that fluorine is introduced,
This is amazing.
break all bonds violently so it can bond with fluorine. Same thing with beryllium and oxygen. That's why it said, and what they've tried to keep from us, if you want to break water into its component parts of hydrogen and oxygen, all you have to do is introduce beryllium or the sound of beryllium, and oxygen will violently break away from any other thing, even hydrogen, to bond with that beryllium.
Didn't you know
That
that?
makes total sense.
No, I get it now.
Here it is. Terrence Howard, the actor from Empire and Iron Man, has his own version of math called Terryology that claims 1 × 1 = 2. Howard believes that the media is lying about the generally accepted answer of 1 × 1 = 1.
So this guy is a director and an actor and a rapper and a what?
Like A-list. Like he's A-list actor. Like A-list money anyway. I know.
He makes Gwyneth Paltrow look like fucking Einstein.
And that he had a disagreement with you want to know what he was pointing out, that he had some patents, and now all those different people now like Microsoft and all these different places have used his patent, and he showed that the patents actually reference his patent, like 5 different things. But Brett Weinstein was interested enough into it to go into it, and he said, well, when they do those patents, they're kind of careful to point out to things that tried to patent themselves as this that didn't get it right at all, but they still have to mention the ones that were like saying, hey, I thought of that idea or something like that.
You know what
And,
I would love, like a Star Trek style technology is a translator, but not of like languages, but like something to plug into a brain, and when a guy says a thing, it tells me what he thinks he's saying to me. You know what I mean? Like that would be great on.
so you might not have caught it. I can simplify it out to you because it's as crazy as it sounds. He thinks all light and all atoms are light. All light is sound, and if you divide them down enough, like sound and light and like everything is the same thing. You can divide light into sound. Yeah, is his opinion.
Nifty.
Yeah. And if you listen to him and gave him some stuff, and Elon Musk, if Joe Rogan got him in contact from the light sound. Gosh dang it. Like, you guys just don't believe. Disagreement with a professor over the problems with studying chemical engineering at Pratt Institute. In 2017, Howard posted his proof of 1 × 1 = 2 on Twitter, but some have questioned the logic of his thinking. In May 2024, Howard appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience when he tried to disprove the Pythagorean theorem and claimed he can kill gravity. Some have
He can kill it?
Like it's an entity.
He says gravity doesn't exist at all. It's all electricity. There's no such thing as gravity. Some have called Howard's beliefs bizarre and outlandish.
I actually heard somebody else talking about this recently. Like, I think they called it the electric universe or the plasma universe.
That was Troy was explaining that to me a little bit in the Longhouse. There's so there's that the Professor Dave guy that Troy really likes. He spends a lot of time arguing with flat earthers, and there's a couple conspiracy theories he hones in on, and Electric Universe is one of them. I haven't watched his video on it yet, but
No, but like I heard somebody uncritically, like unironically posited is like, don't you know that gravity is a lie? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And it was this.
what
thing.
I understand, like there's actually, if you go to Modern Day Debate, I don't know if you've been to that channel, but there's about 1 million flat Earth debates on it, and there's also they just let anyone talk about anything, and it's like internet blood sports basically. It's pretty great, but it's not productive at all.
But you know, like you make me think.
There are people that argue gravity on there, and I never like nobody ever asked them the question like, well, what holds us down? I think maybe they just believe that that's just the default. That's just reality, is that we go down. I don't know, because that's all gravity, like to an individual person, all it is the thing that holds you down. So it has to exist because you are held down.
I mean, maybe that's too much. I was kind of thinking like the original, like Joe Rogan was Coast to Coast AM. You guys remember that show?
Oh yeah,
that show's awesome.
Because I used to deliver pizzas in the early 2000s and work late into the night, and I'd listen to that show, and I loved Open Line Fridays, and because I just loved how George Norrie and I mean Art Bell, both of them, like they both had that same thing where, like they just took everybody to just okay, and like it was Open Night Fridays, and I never forget. He's like, "We're gonna talk to John in Cincinnati. He's a vampire. Hi, John. So." What's it like to be a vampire? Well, George, there's a lot of misconceptions about vampires, you know, and it's like, and it's just all things just taken totally uncritically. And I was like, what an amazing thing this is. Because like anywhere else in the world, it's like, get the fuck out, you fucking dipshit. There's no such thing as fucking vampires. But on this one
like
show,
here's one of the deals is like Rogan took that guy uncritically during that show, but I guarantee you Rogan has all the criticism. Like he's not really believing it. He was just gonna like, I'm gonna go along with him as I'm listening to him here and try to, you know,
sure.
I've got a guest here and he's some A-list actor, but I guarantee you Rogan wasn't really getting convinced by that.
He's not
stuff.
sold on that one.
Let me see if I can find it in his gravity. Here it is. Present share screen.
Theory of relativity. The balancing side of the gravity was caused by electric force. Electricity is always seeking a higher pressure condition. It spins northeast, is trying to get to the center of an area, the center of a cone. But the next electric wave is coming, so it gets pushed out, and as it's pushed out, it gets to the vortices. And that's
I can't believe it just goes like this for 3 hours.
That's such a techno babble. That's amazing. He's really good at it.
Yeah.
If you want to hear somebody that's good at that shit, seriously, listen. Go to Modern Day Debate and look for the Witsit debates. That's his YouTube name. It's Witsit Gets It. He's like if Destiny were a flat earther, but he's also like he's good at debates in that he's good at making other people look stupid and like they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, it'd be real easy. You sit
and
with
he's a flat earther.
It's one of the things because like Brett Weinstein spent the last part of his podcast talking about this, and there's definitely stuff about it that would just kind of make you go like, he could say to you like, you don't know Mendeleev? Like how are you talking to me? You don't know who Mendeleev is or something like that, you know? And you're like, well, I mean, I could probably catch up on what supposedly Mendeleev was in just a couple minutes if you tell me who Mendeleev was. But
yeah, might be something I've actually learned before, and it just, you know, I need you to ring a bell.
But that was kind of one of the points of what Brett was talking about, is that he was saying like, okay, so this guy's either he's either nuts or lying or honestly wrong, but there's just something about him, like he knows too much about all the different areas of the field to just be completely dismissed as an absolutely nothing. But it's just a curious case. Like, it caught everybody's interest big time because he talks enough. It's kind of just like talking about any sort of like evolutionary person, or like you come across, like you said, those flat earthers or stuff, that they actually do know all these different things about whatever random thing, science or evolution, or some scientist or some person at some time in some place, and they've taken the detail and scrambled it up so much that you would never be able to tell. But you can also just tell. Like, you don't need to tell; you can just tell. But but then they have all the references in the world, like every single one of them. That was pretty wild. A wild trip. I didn't listen to the whole thing, and I'm not going to listen to the whole thing. I've just listened to little clips. I can't take much more than that. but until Quaker catches up to that, I can't join his whatever his cult is.
He's smart enough to, like,
He could get there.
I'm saying he's smart enough that he won't sound that stupid when he does it.
Oh yeah, he'd be too smart to like go that far into it. You're saying?
Well, he'll go pretty far into it, but Quaker's whole thing is his brand. I don't think he has opinions. And Terrence Howard, I think he has opinions. Like, I don't think Terrence Howard is misrepresenting himself at all. I think he thinks.
Well, Quaker has opinions against like the Nazis and stuff. He's been decrying like all week on the.
I don't know. I feel like almost everything that comes out of Quaker's mouth is a pre-thought out plan at furthering his brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does have a very kind of lawyerly, kind of politician-y kind of.
He's opening up as many doors as he possibly can before he sees which one of these should be his next arc. Should he go woke? Should he go cult? Should he go, I don't know, whatever other direction? Ex-Mormon. He's opened all these doors. And
Go
and
cult,
it's really
2024.
weird. Yeah.
Look, this is an awesome example of community notes. The Jacobin says, infamous for its starvation wages, Walmart just posted staggering first quarter profits. The surge is a result of its strategic shift towards catering to affluent shoppers, while its full-time workers continue to rely on Medicaid and food stamps. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. Walmart non-corporate associates average hour wage is $17.50 an hour with full-time benefits. Jacobin pays writers 7 cents a word. So a Jacobin writer would have to write 250 words an hour continuously to make the same wage as a Walmart associate, but without benefits.
Wonderful.
I like this philosopher meme. Utilitarianism is what you get when STEM people try to do humanity things. Which is true. That's true. I don't know. You guys have like any more clips?
Oh, it's almost.
It's about that time. I have a few more little things, but it's just little junk.
I feel like there's not enough to say about how insane Jen Camp is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I didn't even get to listen to all those depositions. I didn't even finish the first one. There's like 6 of them.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but like I think almost everybody we covered tonight is like truly is like insane. Like we're covering like true insanity, and I'm not even like cracking a joke. Like we're like,
No, I know you're right. I think
like it was like an especially crazy night. Like I don't think, because usually like when we're covering DeLynn, like he's smarmy and whatever sort of thing, but it's like not insane. Tonight we were hitting on the insane stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get to the Relief Society ladies. They weren't insane. They were just
blah. But I don't know what else to even say on them.
No, there's not much to say really. Like they do that funny thing where they invert reality. Obviously, that's pretty funny. Like when they say things like, "It's different being a woman and going to those meetings because the man." If you're a man and you go to church meetings, you know that you can say whatever you feel and women are taught to hold back what they say and never express their emotions. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, sure. Did you see the Pearl Jam bothered to come out to complain about Butker, dude?
Yeah.
That's depressing.
I liked that because they were lumping together. They had that great meme going around, lumping together Harvey Weinstein, Andrew Tate. Who's the third guy?
Oh yeah, I'll pull that up. Here's a meme first from or a tweet from Morgoth that said, the leftist position on evolution is that it's true when they're arguing against the Christian and false when arguing against the race realist. In the latter case, a Marxist sky fairy invented the halted further adaptation of environment, which is really how they do kind of do it. Did you see Freedom Toon's depiction of how Christians are portrayed in movies?
No, I haven't watched that yet.
That's a funny one.
Freedom Toons has never dinged us, has he?
Nah. You want to watch it?
Yeah.
I was going to pull up the meme of Butker versus
those are
basically Butker, Harvey Weinstein, Andrew Tate, and who was the last one?
I don't remember who the last one was. But it was a hilarious comparison. It was like, these are the 4 dudes that are why women chose to wear. I'm like, hold on a second.
I'll pull it up. You shared it.
Because Andrew Tate, like, probably trafficked a bunch of women. And, like, Harvey Weinstein, like, he threatened women's careers if they didn't blow him. Like, they're both
it was totally transactional.
Yeah, sure. They're both clearly very sleazy dudes.
Oh, it was P. Diddy. It was P. Diddy.
Yeah,
the last
P. Diddy
one.
beat the fuck out of a woman.
Here's the
on
meme
tape.
right
Like,
there.
he beats the fuck out of so many women that he doesn't even care that he's on tape.
Oh yeah, no, I
And
sent
then
you guys that.
Butker like nearly teared up while he's talking about the love of his life that he met in junior high and how she's the reason that he has everything that he does, and he's so grateful that he's a stay-at-home mom.
Whoa. You'll never believe that the person who posted this is a LCSW and a fad activist.
Really? Oh my gosh.
It's the same thing I always
Butker is
we always
totally
do that
belongs
shit
with
with Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate.
But look who posted this. Shit women with law degrees say. There you go. If you ever wanted to know, like, the intellectual and moral bankruptcy of the legal profession, there you go.
That's at the Longhouse. Let's see. Let's see how Christians are portrayed in movies.
This cartoon is not for children.
I don't have a weenie. I don't have a wiener. I don't have a weenie because sex is a sin. I don't have a bottle. Pooping's a sin. I don't have a bottle. What's that? I have no idea what things the media shoves in our face nonstop are. Oh no! I hope someone who smokes cigarettes and says swear words doesn't crumble my sheltered worldview by doing a sin in front of me.
Huh. What if I told you I'm bi?
Oh, I'm shocked by that thing you think makes you interesting. Oh!
Yeah, that's right. I make sins.
No! I didn't know people could do that!
Sometimes men like men.
Men can like men? My dad never told me that when he was hitting my mom during my sheltered but also abusive childhood!
That's because you're gay.
No! I'm gay! Oh, I just found out I'm gay!
What's that?
Huh? Oh, I was just praying.
Oh, cool. I wasn't raised with any of that. What does that do?
Oh, this? So you use each bead to keep track of.
Good stuff.
Jesus.
Literally. That Galilean Jesus wine was pretty good.
Galilean Jesus.
Because it's wine from Galilee, from like Jesus was from Galilee.
Oh,
You
you
know.
had. Oh, do you need to do a wine quarter? Let's wrap up on a
That
wine
was it.
corner.
It was Syrah. It's kosher wine from
You actually
Galilee.
had Galilean wine?
Yeah, I wasn't kidding. It was. Oh, I put the bottle away already because I haven't tried it yet until now. I mean, this is only one of them. But it was Syrah. It was very typical Syrah, and for the price, yeah, totally good. I can sell this bottle of wine, even to people who aren't Jews looking for something to have for Passover. Because stereotyping Jews is terrible.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. No, but yeah, I wasn't expecting too much, just because it's a thing that kind of is there because it's a niche that needs to be filled. But no, that was pretty good wine. Had the typical Syrah spiciness, nice fruitiness. It's only a couple years old, but it's not the kind of wine you want to age for a long time. There you go.
From Galilee, huh?
Yeah. No, it's funny because it's Galilean wine, but it was started by an Italian guy. The winemaker is a Jew, though.
Flip, I just remembered I had a little piece of info I thought that you might like. Let me see if I can find it, though. Rob Henderson found something that backs up your thing about women watch more violent porn than men.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Steve Stewart Williams was on Chris Williamson this week.
I don't know those names.
He's the ape that understood the ape that understood the universe guy.
Yeah.
I never read that. I'm not entirely sure what that's about.
It's just about
evolutionary psychology.
Yeah. And a Breadtuber girl took the time to debunk all of evolutionary psychology.
Really?
Oh, all of it. How long did it take her? 35 minutes?
It got super debunked because she sneered at it. I don't know if you know this. You can sneer at something and be like, here, watch. But suddenly they're on to the fact that a bunch of science is crap. At least when it comes to this, just like Morgoth said, as soon as it comes to evolutionary theory, they'll go. Look at this. She says, I debunked evolutionary psychology.
Oh, it took you 3 hours.
Yeah.
As soon as you try and challenge them or criticize them, all of a sudden you're in your
feelings, you're virtue signaling, you're trying to be politically correct, but they're just looking at the facts, bro.
people seeing culture
Who is
move away
this?
from the supposed ideal will use varied
Just a bread tour.
mechanisms
Who holds their beer like that?
Of course, they might use the law to restrict the freedom of people moving away from this sort of norm, but once this technique has been vanquished by the progressives, conservatives may turn to more
I think she knows more about beer than you too, if she got a beer.
psychological manipulation, basically gaslighting the public into believing things have always been this way for a reason. And the final result of this psychological manipulation is the misleading use of science. Evolutionary psychology is the perfect tool for this. Social hierarchies exist, but it's okay because your rung on the societal ladder was determined by your genes. There's nothing you can do about it, so accept it. Science itself is in a crisis. It's being mistaken for logic and reason, and academics are in a pit of misleading studies, unreplicated studies, publication bias, manipulated data, and outright fraud carried.
Look at that. I like how she pulls up like a bunch of like leftist magazines that have actually been talking about the replication crisis. There's Vox, The Guardian, how big is science's fake paper problem, but they're willing to talk about it when they're wanting to debunk evolutionary psychology. Like, I don't know like how they even go about, because it's 100% true. And Steve Stewart Williams goes into it in his book about how some of the claims are not fully fleshed out or dubious, and people take like a little idea and run a million miles with it. But no, there is actual large amounts of science behind evolutionary psychology, and it's also kind of obvious that if evolution were real, it would obviously be part of our psychology. It's I don't know how you could go about pretending to claim you believe in evolution and think that our psychology could completely escape it. Like I don't know how you even start at that point. But
yeah, that is crazy.
Carried out by their own peers, and they're scrambling around trying to figure out how to fix it. And meanwhile, it's being communicated.
But it is true. Like you could call like someone like that Rollo Tomasi kind of red pill stuff. Not that it's 100% so, but like a bunch of that stuff is them going so autistically hard into evolutionary psychology stuff that they kind of like lose the forest through the trees, or they overvaluate things that don't tell the story that you think they're telling. Like it was brought up in the divorce debate between Sexton and, not that this is an evolutionary psychology thing, but like Sexton and Walsh debated the divorce rate, and they say 70 or 80%, Pearl always brings it up, of divorces are initiated by women. I don't know that that's like that interesting of a stat, because that doesn't mean that women are for sure at fault of 70 to 80% of divorces. Like who initiates a divorce doesn't like indicate who was the shithead in the situation. And
yeah, I mean, if I were a feminist, I would immediately just tell you that that's because more domestic violence is done against women. It might not be true, but I could say that.
But I'm just bringing up a situation where like how a statistic can mean what you think it means or not mean what you think it means. You know?
Oh yeah.
And that stuff gets overused and overshot out all over the place everywhere on all sides. Like these guys act like the left doesn't do that with whatever little random study they get in the world. And it's part of the major problem, and Brett Weinstein's been going into it, of the absolute lying of our science reporters in the world. Like maybe our science reporters are bigger culprits than actual scientists out there. But they went into a hard detail last week about the way science reporters have kind of fudged stuff around Ozempic, which I highly recommend reading, listening to them, how they go into detail about that. But anyway,
to a public who
3 hours and 21 minutes, and she debunked that human minds are affected at all by evolutionary psychology.
It's all structured. It's all social structuralisms.
It's all just a way to, but I mean, well, they're doubting of science now. Suddenly you can doubt science. I thought you were supposed to trust the science, you know. But Steve Stewart Williams goes into detail in his book of the stuff that is actually like has hard science behind it and you can't debate it, and other stuff is in the middle, and some of the stuff of like the ways that it gets overused or oversold in a situation that doesn't quite tell you what you think it's telling you. Which you can see him on Chris Williamson do that just this week. I mean, I'll go to
so lucrative to be a science-backed nutritionist or neuroscientist.
Well,
you pulled it
what
down.
happened?
No, I pulled it off on purpose. I wasn't trying to keep watching her. I was trying to go to Chris Williamson, but I can't go to it from that.
Yeah.
So, just to show you, he's listened to Steve Stewart Williams because it's a good. He brought up the question: what do you think the largest differences between the sexes are? What trait is the maximal largest difference between the sexes?
Neuroticism. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
It doesn't have to be big 5 trait. Just like what single thing do you think is the biggest difference?
Okay. Are we? Is this another autism test?
No, it's close. Yeah, it's kind of a trick question. Like what single thing is just crazy, insanely at high amounts different between men and women?
Gametes.
Well, yeah, but we're talking psychologically.
Psychological.
Yeah, because we're evolutionary psychologists.
Do you want me to keep guessing? I'll keep guessing.
One more guess.
One more guess. Is this like a sexist joke that I should?
No, it's just the actual thing. Like, what's the actual biggest difference between men and women?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any more guesses. I'll go with aggression because that's what Forrest is saying. Like how aggression is expressed.
It's who they're attracted to.
Oh, shut up.
The biggest difference between the sexes is that so many women are attracted to men and so many men are attracted to women. That's the biggest difference. But if you think it's stupid, but if you think about it, like, yeah, if we were, wouldn't that be like far more, Yeah, so it's a trick question. But if we were more the same, wouldn't that be different? Here's Steve Stewart Williams and the books, The Ape That Understood the World. World or universe? The Ape That Understood the Universe. And there he is on Chris Williamson this week.
Actually, Forrest pointed out a good point. He said that no, it's not true because women are almost always attracted to men and women. All women are bi. That's what I always say. Anytime a woman comes out as
still
bi,
be like a major difference between men and women, though.
I know it
Being
is.
bi.
It is. I'm just. It's a
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
I love it whenever a woman comes out as bi. I'm like, oh, so you're coming out as a woman.
Yeah.
I think I told you guys before. Like, it was one of the guests on John Dehlin episode at some point. Take your pick. Like I said, like when a fat woman comes out as bi, I'm as exactly surprised as when a fat guy comes out as liking beer. He's like, "Oh, you don't say."
Anyway, I ain't got nothing else.
We good?
That's it. We're good. Nothing
3
else to
hours.
bullshit about. That was a weird one. That was a weird day. That was a weird week, man. Like the Lynn was just like innocuous. Like there wasn't even anything in it to like irritate me that much. And I was more than sure like that was going to be like a Longhouse special. Like what could be more of a Longhouse special? The Relief Society ladies talking on the Lynn. And it was just, yeah, that sounds like it sucked.
I mean,
they overworked you.
Things.
Like I didn't
That one
really
lady,
have...
there was one lady that was particularly irritating on it, and every time it panned to her, she's like, "I've just learned that I'm my own best friend."
Oh yeah,
and like I need my own approval. And I learned this from Brene Brown. If you're surprised about that,
the only thing that really, I mean, that stuff wasn't that bad in it. Margie mmed her way to another $1,000.
Well, she's got two coaching degrees.
Yeah, 2 coaching degrees. Yeah, I saw some TikTok girl like saying like, "What is the deal with Utah and coaches? Like, what is going on here, Utah? How come everybody's a life coach?"
it has the same. It has the same. Whatever the contagion is that causes Mormon women to be obsessed with multi-level marketing scams, the same element is there in life coaching.
Yeah, I'll pull it up a last thing.
Now, when you are ready to talk about this weird, bizarre, unsettling phenomenon happening among influencers in Utah, specifically, influencers that have been influencing for a long, long time. They were bloggers, they were influencers, they built up a large following, and now they're starting cults. Maybe this is too niche. They're starting MLM coaching / cultural Eastern philosophy, religion, appropriation. It's weird. It's fucking weird. People are shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars for these women who have no credentials to do any of this shit. It's fucking weird. What is happening? Like
I don't know. There's not much else to it. Just
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Who could she be talking about?
Pizza me, pizza me. It's the TikTok generation. Sister Higdon just sent us a final. This goes right with the TikTok theme. Here you go. Did you know all shrimp were born male but slowly grow into females as they mature? Like TikTokers. From trauma.
It's kind of funny because, like, in a lot of ways, of all the people in this little group of porch time, I kind of feel like Sister Higdon is the meanest one.
I know.
She's pretty mean.
I have to hide some of the stuff she says sometimes. It's like, I don't want to get in trouble for this, man.
Well, she actually just kind of lacks the ability to not say the things that she thinks. She's like that invention of lying, the Ricky Gervais character. Have you seen that Ricky Gervais movie? It's the invention of lying.
I saw one.
So it's nobody can lie, and Ricky Gervais, he discovers the lie. And so he says things like, there's $1 million in my account, and they just believe that there's an error because nobody has the ability to lie. And it's not only can they not lie, but they just say the things that they think all the time. And that's like Morgan would just fit in perfectly with that society. Because she just went on it, like she jumped into this rabbit hole about homosexuality maybe not being a born this way thing and maybe being more like trauma based or whatever. So she went and told all of her friends about it, and they're all super uncomfortable with it. I don't know why they don't want to hear this. Don't they want to hear new things? Like, no, most people don't. I love you, but they don't.
Tell her to go tell people about Mendeleev and the new periodic table. And,
She's also the meanest, because what got her upset, like I ranted about like this woke shit for nearly a full decade, and she didn't really care about it. And then one day she found out about fat studies, and that's all she did for like 2 months.
South Park was
People that think that fat isn't wrong. Like, oh yeah.
Did you see the Jubilee video on fat people versus jacked people?
Oh my God, no.
That was this week too.
Was it as good as the IQ one? Because that one was amazing.
It wasn't as good. And it wasn't one of those types of videos. It was one of those debate videos, just like the Mormons versus the...
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Alrighty, y'all.
We do it.
Thanks for chilling and hanging and looking at crazy with us. Go worship Terrence Howard and Kwaku and find the universe spirit.
Listen to Black Voices, everybody.
Let's get on this. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. I just saw spirits, man. I just saw eternal spirits teaching me. All right.
We'll see ya.
Catch you later.